Chapter 202. Ever since Jing Tan was called over by Air Mao for questioning, Jing Tan didn't go there again. In order to make the people in the villa complex forget about the mythical animal, Jing Tan didn't go out much for the next few days. Jiao Ma sent the recorded video to Jiao Pa so that he could watch it and have some fun. Later, during the international video call, Jiao Pa mentioned it, saying that their cat was originally a mythical animal and that Maneki Nico was also a mythical animal. During the international video call, Jiao Ma also mentioned that she was going to take the 2 children and a cat to the countryside to play during the summer vacation. Jiao Ma's father, Old Master Gu, had mentioned it many times that he missed the children. It was good to go and play. Jing Tan was lying on the balcony, thinking about what to do at Old Master Gu's place when he suddenly heard a cat meowing downstairs. Meow. Meow. Jing Tan knew who it was as soon as he heard the sound. However, this guy hadn't come over for a long time. Where was he going to pick a fight today? Peanut Candy was now an adult and was obviously one size bigger than Jing Tan. It was usually the king of the pet center. Other than its mother, this guy wasn't afraid of anyone. However, in front of Jing Tan, Peanut Candy still retained some of its childhood habits. From a human's point of view, Peanut Candy treated Jing Tan as an elder. As for other cats, this guy didn't give them any face at all. Jing Tan was about to go downstairs to see who this guy was going to pick a fight with when he heard a cat meowing from the balcony on the 3rd floor. The 2 cats were meowing at each other. Jing Tan felt that something was wrong. He stuck his head out from the balcony and looked down. Black Rice, who had been lazy for the past few days, was sticking its head out of the balcony and meowing downstairs. Jing Tan looked at the cat's head on the 3rd floor and then at Peanut Candy, who was meowing excitedly downstairs. *CK. It can't be. When did these 2 hook up? Not only did Jing Tan understand, but Air Mao also figured it out. A month ago, there was a salon at the pet center. Air Mao took Black Rice to the pet center for a bath and participated in the salon. He even successfully hit on a pretty girl. Since Black Rice didn't usually run around, it would come over as soon as Air Mao called for it. Plus, the pet center had security measures to prevent cats from running out, so Air Mao wasn't too worried at that time. Perhaps that was when they hooked up? Or perhaps even earlier. When Air Mao went to look for the great aunt, he had left the Black Rice at the pet center. Perhaps they had known each other at that time. Although animals' estrus was mainly affected by hormones, sometimes they had to look at each other. Some people raised a male and female cat for a few years, but they just couldn't get along. Air Mao looked at the cat downstairs with a gloomy face. He remembered this cat. It was from the pet center. It was called Candy Peanut. He heard that it had replaced its mother as the overlord there. He couldn't just let the cat keep meowing. It wouldn't be good to disturb the people around. Air Mao went downstairs and unlocked the door. Jing Tan watched Candy Peanut go downstairs. He hesitated if he should go up to the 3rd floor to see what was going on. However, when he thought about how he almost got caught, Jing Tan got angry. It was rare to catch Candy Peanut, so he had to teach it a lesson. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. On the 3rd floor, when Peanut Candy climbed upstairs, Black Rice was already pacing back and forth in front of her house. The moment the 2 met, they were very affectionate, rubbing against each other. Seeing this, Air Mao felt even more depressed, and because of this, it found Peanut Candy even more unpleasant. It took out the fishing rod that it usually used to play with the cat and waved it threateningly at Peanut Candy. Candy Peanut saw this and bared its teeth at Air Mao. Its fur stood up and it growled aggressively. "I'm telling you, get out of here after you're done watching. Don't ever come here again, or I'll beat you to death." Air Mao waved the plastic rod in its hand and pretended to hit it. Candy Peanut growled even louder. When Jing Tan went in through the half-closed door, he saw the man and the cat staring at each other as if they were enemies. Black Rice was calmly squatting at the side, as if it was confused about why the 2 were acting like this. Glancing at the man and the cat in a deadlock, Jing Tan walked over. Couldn't the 2 of them have a calm discussion? Peanut Candy's IQ wasn't low among cats, and she had fully inherited her parents' strengths. She had been in contact with people for a long time, so she could understand some of their words. However, she was still young, so she wasn't as experienced as her parents. Otherwise, she wouldn't have directly confronted Air Mao here. Seeing Zheng Tan come in, the deadlock eased a little. Candy Peanut walked to Zheng Tan's side and meowed. Zheng Tan narrowed his eyes and slapped Candy Peanut. This kid's good deed almost got him into trouble. Candy Peanut was a little confused by this slap. Its eyes were full of innocence. Meow, meow my ass. You're still pretending to be innocent. Another slap. Candy Peanut dropped its ears, shrunk its head, closed its eyes, and obediently squatted there to be slapped. In fact, Zheng Tan had held back a lot when she slapped Peanut Candy. At most, she had used a little more force than when the sheriff and the others were playing around. With Peanut Candy's tolerance, this little bit of force was nothing to it. Perhaps it also knew that the black cat in front of it, who had watched it grow up, wouldn't really hurt it. Seeing the situation in front of it, Air Mao was even more depressed. He didn't close the door just now because he wanted to threaten and scare this naughty cat to test its courage. It would be best if it could back off and never come back again. He didn't expect this guy to be so fierce. It wasn't afraid of him at all and even looked like it wanted to fight. At first, Air Mao sighed in its heart. No wonder its daughter liked this guy. He was brave and manly enough. But, in the blink of an eye, this guy seemed to have changed. It didn't even dare to fart after being slapped by Black Coal upstairs. Even its claws were retracted. Was this AF** King illegitimate child? Black Coal, is this guy your son? Air Mao sat on the sofa in the living room, twirling the plastic stick in its hand as it asked. Zheng Tan glanced at Air Mao angrily. T. Why are you blaming me for everything? Before Zheng Tan could protest, Air Mao muttered to itself, it doesn't look like it. You can't make it like this. This cat is so much bigger than you, and it has long hair. Its father must be a big long-haired cat. Zheng Tan retracted the foot that was about to kick Air Mao in the face. He thought that Air Mao probably hadn't connected Candy Peanut to Yi Hao's Monsignor. However, Monsignor often followed Master Tang VII. Had Air Mao ever seen him? Many female cats ignored male cats during pregnancy and might even attack them. However, Black Rice's attitude towards Candy Peanut was quite good. Candy Peanut stayed there with Black Rice for a while before leaving. When it left, Air Mao threatened it with the plastic stick. Don't you dare come here again. Otherwise, I'll beat you up every time I see you. Candy Peanut bared its teeth and looked like it couldn't be bothered. Air Mao was so angry that it almost fainted. He didn't know if Candy Peanut understood Air Mao's words, but Zheng Tan didn't see it in the courtyard for the next week. Air Mao didn't let Xiaogua and the others know about this at all. It was probably afraid that Xiaogua would come and snatch the cat. Now, Xiaogua and Li Yuanba's cat mother, Li Yan, were getting closer and closer. They were already discussing marriage and becoming a family. Candy Peanut and Li Yuanba had already lived in the pet center and treated it as their home. Therefore, Candy Peanut was also Xiaogua's. Air Mao was afraid that Xiaogua wouldn't snatch the big cat, but the small cat. In addition, Air Mao was still angry at Candy Peanut and Xiaogua, so it kept the matter a secret. During this time, it took Black Rice to another pet hospital for a checkup. Because Black Rice had been pregnant for more than 6 weeks, in order to better understand Black Rice's condition and see if there was a possibility of a difficult birth and a cesarean section, it performed abdominal palpation, B-mode ultrasound, X-ray, and other analysis. It was confirmed that everything was fine. It also checked the number of kittens. There were only 2. It was said that when a cat was pregnant, it should be avoided to take it to other places. Even if it was in an animal hospital, the virus that might exist there could be very dangerous for it. Air Mao decided not to take Black Rice out for a while. The veterinarian saw Air Mao's hesitation and comforted it. It was just a cat giving birth, not a human. There was no need to make it so complicated. Most female cats could solve the birth problem by themselves. At most, they could help by the side. After asking about some things to pay attention to, Air Mao decided to behave before the kittens were born and not run out often. Air Mao also called Celestine, Qin Tao, and his brother Wang Bin, one by one to inform them. Don't come to my place if there's nothing important. If there's anything, just call me directly. According to the recommendation in the brochure, Air Mao bought a nest with a roof. This kind of nest could block out the light and make the cat feel safe in a dark environment. But Black Rice didn't like it and still wanted to stay in its original nest. Air Mao moved Black Rice's nest to the study room. The study room in the house was not used much anyway. The second bedroom was full of the landlord's things, and the door of the second bedroom was basically never opened. Air Mao usually used the study room to store food. Now, it simply cleaned it up. When the curtains were closed, it was still dark. Black Rice looked at it and didn't object. One day, when Jing Tan was walking outside, he met Air Mao, who went to Jiao Wei's restaurant to get food. Air Mao mentioned it to him. Black Cole, you see, there are only 2 kittens. I thought there would be more. I used to know a person whose cat gave birth to 6 kittens. Air Mao sighed and felt lucky at the same time. It was better to have fewer kittens. Hearing this, Zheng Tan couldn't help but remember that Li Yuanba only gave birth to 1 kitten, Peanut Candy. Was it because of the Monseigneur's special genes that he couldn't give birth to too many kittens? However, quality was more important than quantity. Zheng Tan believed that with the special genes of the Monseigneur, even if it had been diluted for 2 generations, it wouldn't be too bad. Besides, Li Yuanba was so strong, and Black Rice was not simple either. This family of 3 generations of cats, were they going to dominate Chu Hua City in the future? Hey, Black Cole, what do you think the 2 kittens should be named after they come out? Air Mao said as it grabbed the leaves of an unknown plant in the flower bed. Jing Tan thought for a while. Black Rice, Peanut Candy, just call them Peanuts. Air Mao also thought of peanuts, but it felt that when it mentioned peanuts, it would think of the 2 kittens' father, Peanut Candy, and it didn't feel good. We can't call them Peanuts. Just call them Demi and Xiaomi. I just don't know what the kitten's fur color will be. I hope it will be more like Black Rice. Air Mao looked expectant. Chapter 203. Zheng Tan was lying on the bamboo mat sofa in the house. He yawned, turned around, and looked at the calendar hanging on the wall in the living room. It was July today. Little Pomelo and Jiao Yuan were busy with their final exams. Summer vacation was coming soon. In order to have a better summer vacation, they were all working hard to get good grades. As for the college entrance exam, it was already over. Zheng Tan saw Zhong Yan at the construction site when he went out for a walk 2 weeks ago. Zhong Yan seemed to be in a good mood, so he must have done well. Perhaps this was the first time he had taken the exam so easily. He didn't have to hide his abilities or worry about other things. He just had to do his best. At the end of June, the college entrance exam results were out. Zheng Tan didn't go far these days. He was basically hanging around the school. A few families in the building knew that Air Mao's Black Rice was going to have kittens. However, cats were not like dogs. They were very cautious of people. Nobody went over often. They only bought food for Black Rice occasionally. Jiao Ma was the same. She would buy food and send it over every few days. Zheng Tan had only been there once recently, and it was with Mama Jiao. Black Rice's condition was fine, but Air Mao was not. This guy was neurotic and had dark circles under his eyes. Zheng Tan didn't know what he was worried about. If his wife gave birth in the future, would he be worried for 10 months? Celestine and Qin Tao came a few times, but they didn't enter the house. Air Mao didn't let them in. If they came, they would find a place to eat and talk so that they wouldn't disturb Black Rice. Zheng Tan was thinking about when Black Rice would give birth to kittens when his ears twitched. He looked at the door. Black Cole, go out and eat. It was Air Mao. Although Celestine didn't go to Air Mao's place when he came, he would call Air Mao and Zheng Tan to chat in the woods not far from the eastern courtyard. Every time he came, he would bring some food. There were stone tables and stone stools in the woods. Aside from the bird poop, it was quite comfortable to sit there. Zheng Tan and Air Mao went out of the building. Celestine was already waiting in front of the building. Just like the previous few times, he was carrying a bag with some food and cold beer. They came to the forest and wiped off the bird droppings on the stone bench. Then 2 people and a cat sat down. Celestine placed a disposable paper bowl on top of the cold dishes and the sliced duck he bought from a shop near the school gate. He was finally engaged and was planning to hold the wedding in October of this year. It's decided? When I have time, I'll prepare a big gift. Oh, I'll also buy a pair of mandarin ducks for you. Air Mao said, Don't send mandarin ducks. I saw a report a while ago that mandarin ducks change partners. It's not as beautiful as people say, Celestine replied. Then I'll just give you 2 figurines. Not bad. Oh, by the way, your black rice hasn't been born yet? Celestine looked at Air Mao's sleepy face and asked. I've been annoyed recently. Didn't they say it would be born in 2 months? It's been 2 months and there's still no news. I called the vet at the veterinary hospital and he said that some cats do indeed have a late birth. It's also common for cats to give birth after more than a week. A few days ago, a cat friend's cat gave birth after 65 days of pregnancy. Celestine curled his lips. He still felt that Air Mao was too nervous. It was just a cat. Did it have to be so nervous? Don't be happy. When your wife gives birth, you might not be better than me, Air Mao said. That's my wife. Of course I'm nervous. Is that your wife? Look at you. If other people knew about this, they would be so shocked that their eyeballs would fall out. I didn't know you liked cats so much. After a pause, Wei Ling added, You've become a cat slave. Air Mao hummed and didn't explain. It just ate and drank silently. Zheng Tan squatted beside it and ate while listening to the two chatting. Speaking of the kittens in the future, what should they do when they grow up? Should they be sent away or kept? Air Mao hadn't decided yet, but it definitely wouldn't sell it or give it to the people at the pet center. It would wait and see. If Black Rice wants to kick the kittens out of the house when they grow up, then we'll see. If she doesn't, then I'll keep them all. Tisk, in your small place, you want to keep 3 cats? Don't you think it's troublesome? Celestine didn't think that was a good idea. Besides, not every cat was like the black cat in front of him. If the 3 cats quarreled, it would be troublesome for Air Mao. After eating and drinking, the afternoon sun was still hot. Celestine went back to the company. He had something to do in the neighborhood today, so he dropped by to have a chat. Knowing that Black Rice's due date was approaching, the Jiao family's most anxious person was Jiao Ma. She asked about Black Rice every day. Zheng Tan also listened to the movements on the 3rd floor when he was at home. If it was the same as usual, then it probably wasn't due yet. As the days passed, Air Mao became more and more nervous. Every once in a while, it would go to the study to check. It didn't even have the mood to surf the internet. It called the veterinarian several times a day to ask about Black Rice. It even asked a veterinarian to come over to check on Black Rice. However, when the veterinarian stood at the door, Air Mao immediately pushed him out of the house. However, the veterinarian was also a real doctor. Although he didn't observe Black Rice for long, he could tell that there was nothing serious. It didn't matter if it was a few days late, as long as the cat was healthy. A few days later, Air Mao woke up in the morning to pee. It wasn't very awake yet. It watched horror movies until late last night to distract itself, so it couldn't get up this morning. It was because it had to pee that it woke up. After it wobbled to the toilet and peed, it habitually walked to the study. Every morning after peeing, it would take a look at the study. Otherwise, Air Mao wouldn't be able to fall asleep even if it continued to lie on the bed. However, when it took a look, Air Mao's half-opened eyes widened. With the dim light coming in through the curtains, Air Mao saw the extra little lump in the cat bed. It was different in color from the cat bed and Black Rice's. *CK. Air Mao was completely awake. It carefully approached the cat bed. Just as it took a step, it thought of something and retreated quietly. It ran back to the room to take out a pair of gloves it had prepared in advance and came to the study again. Black Rice was probably tired and was lying there sleeping. When it noticed Air Mao approaching, its ears twitched and its eyes opened a little. It looked at Air Mao and went back to sleep. It wasn't like other cats that were unusually vigilant towards their owners. This made Air Mao very happy. It was indeed its daughter. Air Mao reached out its hand to touch the kitten. Seeing that Black Rice didn't have any other reaction, it boldly picked up the kitten and carefully looked at it. It didn't have any missing arms or legs and looked very healthy. Its 2 soft, fluffy little ears didn't stand up either. It was said that it would only stand up after 3 weeks. Its eyes didn't open either. It had to wait for a week. This was a tricolored cat. The black and yellow fur on its back covered a little more area, but its belly was more white. Air Mao didn't know how to tell the gender of a cat, let alone a kitten like this. However, it was said that tricolored cats were mostly female. Well, Black Rice had a daughter. After carefully observing the small lump in its palm, Mao remembered that there should be another one. It gently put the kitten down. He read in a book that if a kitten had a human scent, the big cat would feel unfamiliar and wouldn't feed it. It might even bite the kitten to death. Therefore, Mao prepared gloves in advance. One was to prevent his scent from leaving on the kitten, and the other was to prevent his germs from spreading to the kitten. After all, he didn't pay much attention to personal hygiene, so Mao felt that it was better to be careful. When it put the kitten down, Mao gently rubbed the kitten against Black Rice. Even if there was a scent, it would be fine as long as it had the scent of the mother cat. After putting down the tricolored kitten, Mao looked at the nest. He didn't notice it earlier, but now he realized that the second kitten's fur was similar to Black Rice's. They were both black and white, but there was a slight difference in the black and white patches. Mao gently picked up the kitten. This one was also very healthy, but looking at the kitten's face in front of him, Mao's mood suddenly worsened. This black and white kitten had a black mole on the side of its mouth. Peanut also had a yellow mole on the side of his mouth. The only difference was the color. However, when Mao looked at this little kitten, he would think of this little kitten's bastard father. Although he didn't want to see the mole beside the kitten's mouth, Mao still carefully put the kitten back beside Black Rice. After stroking Black Rice for a while, Mao prepared to leave. When he got up, he remembered that he wasn't there when Black Rice gave birth last night. He didn't know which one was born first. Then which one was Rice. Looking at it, Mao felt that the two were about the same size. He couldn't judge them based on size. Thinking about the mole beside the black and white kitten's mouth, Mao decided that this one was Little Me, and the tricolored one was Rice. After making up his mind, Mao looked at the black and white kitten that was drinking milk. He thought to himself, "Why do you have an extra mole? It would be great if you didn't have a mole. Why don't you learn from your father?" After leaving the study, Mao was still excited. He looked back at the study. He heard that kittens were more afraid of light when they were born. The curtains in the study were drawn, so it should be fine. Xianxia heard the unusual movements in Mao's room that day. Usually, Mao would still be sleeping at this time and wouldn't be as diligent as it was today. He guessed that the kitten was born. However, he only went downstairs with Jiaoma the next day to take a look. Jiaoma didn't go into the study either. She just looked at the door. Black Rice was still very wary of anyone other than Mao. Even Xianxia couldn't get close to the cat's nest. Whenever he did, Black Rice would growl. For a short period of time, Black Rice wouldn't let the two kittens out of its sight. They basically only moved around the cat's nest. Mao moved the kitten's bowl to the study so that Black Rice wouldn't walk around. At most, Black Rice would poop or take a walk. Black Rice would only leave for a short period of time, but it wouldn't go too far. When he saw the mole on the black and white kitten's mouth, Xianxia was overjoyed. The mole was so accurate. It was just like its father. Little Pomelo and Jiao Yuan also wanted to see the kittens, but Jiaoma said that they should wait for a while. It was better not to disturb them now. When Xianxia followed Jiaoma to see the kittens again, a week had passed. The two kittens looked much stronger than when they were born. Their fur was also thicker. Their eyes were open a little, but not completely. Chapter 204. Mao was on the phone in the bedroom. Ever since Little Rice and Little Rice were born, Black Rice had taken good care of the two kittens. Everything was going well. Mao was relieved, and its anxiousness gradually disappeared. It returned to its original state, and it was probably going out with someone recently. Xianxia went in through the half-closed door, and stood at the door of the study to look at the kitten's nest. Black Rice was eating outside the nest. After noticing Xianxia at the door, it just glanced at him and ignored him. However, if Xianxia walked into the study, Black Rice would definitely roar. So every time Xianxia came, he just looked at the door out of curiosity and never went in. The kittens had been born for 2 weeks, and they had recently started to grow teeth. They had also become stronger and more coordinated. When Black Rice wasn't around, they would crawl around in the nest and sometimes out of the nest. Mao had asked someone to check. The black and white kitten with a mole at the corner of its mouth was male. Mao had even proudly posted in the pet forum that its daughter had given birth to a pair of twins. There was a layer of carpet outside the cat's nest, which was specially prepared by Mao so that the kittens wouldn't be cold when they crawled out. Mao felt that it should be careful even on a hot day. After all, they were kittens, not big cats. Zheng Tan had seen some kittens a few weeks old when he was filming an advertisement at the pet center. In comparison, the special genes of Monsignor were probably too strong. These two kittens were about the same size as a 3-week-old kitten, and their fur was longer and thicker than 3-week-old short-haired domestic kittens. They were about the same size as their father, Peanut Candy. It was said that short-haired cats opened their eyes earlier than long-haired cats. Not only did these two kittens open their eyes earlier than other cats, but they were also bigger. They often crawled out of the cat's nest energetically and searched everywhere. However, they still couldn't stand straight, and their limbs trembled when they crawled. When Zheng Tan was looking at the two kittens, they had just woken up and realized that black rice wasn't there. They started to make a fuss again, and when they saw that no one was paying attention, they leaned on the edge of the cat's nest and looked out. Then, with a push, they flipped out of the cat's nest and rolled on the carpet. Black Rice looked over and continued eating. He was probably used to these two messing around. When the two kittens were crawling on the carpet, Zheng Tan looked at them. Their ears were not fully erect, but they would still move because of the sounds outside. After Black Rice brought the two kittens back to their nest, Zheng Tan left and went upstairs. Tomorrow, Jiaoma would leave Chuhua City with little Pomelo, Jiao Yuan, and Zheng Tan to spend the summer vacation in Jiaoma's hometown. Before he left, Zheng Tan came over to check on the two kittens. When he came back, the two kittens would probably be throwing a tantrum in the house. He just didn't know if they would be like their father. If these two kittens were to stay in the compound in the future, it would be difficult for the compound to be peaceful. However, he heard that once the kittens grew up, the mother cat would chase them away. When he heard Celestine and Mao's conversation that day, Zheng Tan thought that Candy Peanut would often patrol this area. If it wasn't for Zheng Tan's mediation, Candy Peanut would probably fight with the sheriff and Depang every time she came to the compound. Then, when the two kittens grew up, would the father and daughter start a war? Cats were very territorial. Monsignor and Candy Peanut were very territorial. Kittens that inherited Monsignor's bloodline were very likely to not be kind cats. It was said that there was no father-son relationship on the battlefield. He didn't know if the rule of wild cats in nature would be played out here. Maybe when the time came, Mao would have to send these two out. After summer vacation, little Pomelo and Jiao Yuan stayed at home all day to do their homework. The sooner they finished, the sooner they could go out to play. They didn't want to bring their homework with them. That way, they wouldn't be able to have fun. For little Pomelo, at most, she would leave some space in her homework for writing essays and diaries. She would make up for it when the time came. Right now, they were almost done with their homework. Jiaoma didn't have much to do, so she called old Master Gu and told him that she would be coming over. The next morning, when the sun wasn't that strong, the three Jiao family members carried their packed luggage downstairs. Jiaoma had already driven the car for maintenance. She didn't want anything to happen to the two children because of the car. The air conditioner in the car was turned on. Zheng Tan sat in the front passenger seat. Little Pomelo and Jiao Yuan sat in the back, preparing for a game of chess. Zheng Tan took a nap. When he looked out of the window again, he saw that they had already exited the highway. There were many aquaculture ponds outside. There were many aquaculture businesses in this area. It was said that there were almost 4,000 fishermen here. The total area of the fish farm was huge. In addition to the 4 main types of fish, there were also mandarin fish, eels, turtles, shrimps, crabs, and so on. Anyway, Zheng Tan didn't have to worry about not being able to eat fish here. In addition to the famous fish ponds, there were also some experimental fields here. Sometimes, new varieties of fruits that were about to hit the market could be eaten here in advance. Many people here made a fortune from aquaculture. Many roads in the village were well repaired. That was why Zheng Tan was able to sleep until now. He didn't have to wake up because of the bad roads. Look, someone is fishing. Jiao Yuan had stopped playing chess. He pointed outside and shouted. He liked to come here because he could fish and catch shrimps here. It was fun. Zheng Tan saw that someone was fishing in a pond. He guessed that they were going to transport the fish there. There was also a truck parked next to it. Sit properly, Jiao Ma scolded from the front. Jiao Yuan didn't move. He just leaned against the car window and looked outside. There were some children in the village helping around. Jiao Yuan didn't know what they were doing. Little Pomelo was also very curious. Although she didn't say anything, it was obvious from the look in her eyes. Old Master Gu and Old Madam Gu had been waiting at the door for a long time. When they saw the car, they smiled so widely that their eyes narrowed. Zheng Tan looked around. There was a dog with a tail wagging happily beside the two elders. Its back was black, and there were some white spots on its chest and legs. The funniest thing was that there were 2 white spots on the dog's eyebrows. During the Lunar New Year, when Zheng Tan came, he didn't see this dog. It must have been caught after the Lunar New Year. It didn't look like it had reached adulthood. The half-grown dog looked quite energetic. When it saw the car approaching, it retreated behind Old Master Gu. However, it wasn't afraid and looked curiously in their direction. When they saw Jiao Ma and Jiao Yuan, they were very happy, especially Little Pomelo. When Old Master Gu saw Little Pomelo get out of the car, he went up to Little Pomelo despite his old age. You've gained weight. Our Little Pomelo has grown again. After Zheng Tan got out of the car, the half-grown dog that had been standing behind Old Master Gu barked at Zheng Tan ferociously. However, when it was about 20 centimeters away from Zheng Tan, it stopped abruptly. It didn't bite and continued barking. Its eyebrows twitched. Zheng Tan looked at the half-grown dog in front of him and thought to himself, this guy's facial expressions are quite rich. After parking the car, Old Master Gu led them into the house. The room had already been tidied up. Last week, your mother removed insects from the front and back of the house. There are a lot of mosquitoes and sometimes snakes in the summer. But don't worry, I've already done some protection. Pomelo isn't afraid. Old Master Gu held Little Pomelo's hand as he walked in front. The first half of his sentence was directed at Jiao Ma, while the second half was directed at Little Pomelo. Zheng Tan looked at Jiao Yuan. The child didn't care about Old Master Gu's favoritism at all. His gaze fell on the fishing gear in the house, and his eyes lit up. If it weren't for Jiao Ma standing beside him, the child would have probably gone up to play with it. Old Master Gu's dog was called Ertong. Old Madam Gu said that she had thought that the dog's eyebrows were very interesting, just like Ertong in Mahjong, so she named it that way. Hearing the name Ertong, Zheng Tan couldn't help but wonder if it wasn't a combination of Ertong and rice bucket. At this time, Ertong wasn't just staring at Zheng Tan. 3 strangers had come. It was also very smart. After barking twice at the beginning and being scolded by Old Master Gu, it stopped barking. It probably knew that the 3 people weren't bad people and should be treated with friendliness. Then it followed them around, wagging its curled tail happily. Old Madam Gu washed some grapes and brought them over. Someone had sent them over 2 days ago. The 2 elders couldn't bear to eat them, so they left them for Jiao Ma and the others today. There were also some fruits from the experimental field that had just entered the market this year. They washed them and put them in the fruit basket. Old Master Gu used to be a cadre in the village. After retirement, he still had some prestige in the village and was quite popular. Old Master Gu often said, "What's the use of bank cards these days? Sometimes you still have to show your face." Therefore, Old Master Gu valued his reputation and often boasted in front of his daughter. He had 2 daughters, but he didn't have the face to talk about what his younger daughter had done in the village. The villagers only knew that Old Master Gu's younger daughter was earning a lot of money overseas. His granddaughter had the same surname as him, so Old Master Gu directly called her granddaughter. He kept asking Little Pomelo to call him grandfather. People who didn't know the truth would think that Old Master Gu had married a son-in-law who had moved in with his family. After arriving here and resting for a day, Jiao Yuan couldn't wait any longer and wanted to go out to play. Old Master Gu gave them 2 small shovels and a small plastic bucket to dig for earthworms in the backyard. Zheng Tan stayed by the side and watched them dig for earthworms. Little Pomelo was a little scared at first, but gradually she let go. After a few shovels, she directly grabbed the earthworms with her hands and threw them into the small plastic bucket. When the earthworms were almost done, Old Master Gu gave the 2 children a straw hat each and found a few wooden poles of suitable length. He also found a cotton thread that he hadn't used at home. It wasn't too long, so he tied one end of the thread to the pole and went to a wild pond. The wild pond wasn't big. It used to be a fish pond, but it was filled in later. No one cared about it, but there were more prawns here. Some of the children in the village liked to come here to fish for prawns in the summer. There were some trees beside the wild pond to provide shade, so old Master Gu tied earthworms to them. This was the method that the children in the village often used to fish for prawns. It wasn't very particular as long as they could catch it. It cost almost nothing. Jiao Yuan was experienced, so he didn't need old Master Gu to say much. He took the wooden pole and started, so old Master Gu taught little Pomelo alone. He also prepared a small fishing net at the side. People often said that prawns were stupid, and Jing Tan felt that it was true. Jiao Yuan didn't place the pole very deep. After all, the pole was only about 1 meter long, and the cotton thread wasn't long either. Jing Tan could see the earthworms that were tied to the end of the rope moving under the water. Then, not long after, a prawn came close. Jing Tan saw the prawn's action of catching the earthworms. When Jiao Yuan lifted the pole, the prawn didn't let go. Jing Tan came to the metal bucket and looked at the prawn that Jiao Yuan had just shaken off. The prawn was waving its small pincers at Jing Tan. Jing Tan snorted disdainfully. How stupid! Just wait to be eaten. Of course, not all prawns were like that. There were some that were smarter, especially the older ones. Jing Tan squatted at the side and watched them fish for a while. He started to feel bored again. He couldn't do it himself, so he could only watch from the side. Looking around, Jing Tan prepared to walk around. Don't go too far, little Pomelo reminded him. After a pause, she added, don't cause trouble. Chapter 205. Jing Tan leisurely walked around the wild pond. There were some trees at the edge. Although they weren't very big, they could provide some shade under the sun at this time. There were many wild plants nearby. Jing Tan found them familiar, but he could not name them. Some frogs or toads were standing on some floating branches in the wild pond and croaking. When they noticed Jing Tan approaching, they immediately jumped into the water. Sometimes, some small fish could be seen swimming under the water. It was indeed a place of aquaculture. Fish could be seen everywhere. It was not necessarily someone who had deliberately thrown them here. It could also be that they had encountered some coincidental situations during the flood season. The cicadas in the trees were also arguing. They seemed to be competing to see who was louder. If it were in other places, there would definitely be some children fishing and shrimp around the wild pond during the summer vacation. However, the children here had probably played a lot since they were young. They did not care for it. They preferred to go to the big fish ponds to watch the fun. Occasionally, they could pick up a few big fish for free. It was said that recently, some college students with related majors had come to a nearby aquaculture base for internships. Some of them were doing scientific research and experiments. That was even more lively. Some children who were good at killing fish were also invited to help. The adults did not have the time. Even if they did, they would not care about the little reward. However, the children were different. For them, indoor work was not only rewarded, but also free air conditioning. Therefore, when Jing Tan and the others came to the wild pond, they did not see any children in the village. As he was thinking, Jing Tan's ears twitched. He heard a sudden movement in front of him. Someone was there? In Jing Tan's impression, even if the children did not shout loudly, they would occasionally talk and laugh in low voices. Sometimes, they would even be in groups of 3 or 5. They would never be so quiet. There was no reason for them to suddenly make a noise now. Jing Tan walked over quietly. The movement there suddenly became louder. There were some plants growing on the edge of the wild pond, blocking Jing Tan's sight. At the same time, it also acted as a cover. The people on the other side of the wild pond would not easily notice Jing Tan. The further they went, the narrower the wild pond became. They were almost at the end. On the other side was a little girl about the same age as little Pomelo. Not only were her clothes old, they were also crudely patched. Although the child looked about the same age as little Pomelo, the difference between her and little Pomelo was that this little girl looked rather thin. Her face wasn't yellow because she was already tanned, but she was really thin. Her little face didn't look like it had any flesh, unlike little Pomelo's fair and tender baby fat. The small arms and legs that were exposed outside also seemed to be wrapped in a layer of skin. There was no flesh to be felt. Her shoulder-length hair was probably cut by herself, as it didn't look very coordinated. When Zheng Tan looked over, the kid was in the middle of retracting his pole. No wonder there was a sudden commotion. Otherwise, Zheng Tan wouldn't have noticed that there was someone here so quickly. The kid was also fishing for prawns. There was a can of earthworms beside her. Zheng Tan could clearly see the earthworms wriggling inside. She was probably experienced. The child set up 3 poles at 3 places not far from each other. One of the earthworms on the pole probably couldn't take it anymore. After catching a prawn, the little girl grabbed a few more from the canned food bottle and replaced them with new ones. Earthworms weren't the most ideal bait for prawns, but the advantage was that they were easy to catch. It was just that they had to be replaced with live earthworms every now and then. Otherwise, if the earthworms died or were soaked for too long, the effect would be reduced, and they wouldn't be able to fool those old prawns. After replacing the earthworms with fresh ones, the little girl sat on the side and rested for 2 minutes. She got up and walked between the 3 poles lightly to see which one had the most movement. Zheng Tan walked over to take a look. There was a cracked plastic bucket fixed with a rope. There were already some crayfish in the bucket. It seemed that the kid had a good harvest. There were also some green prawns. There were many farmers in this place, and there were also green prawns. It wasn't strange to see green prawns here. As for the crayfish, this thing was originally an invasive species. It had strong adaptability and was widely distributed. Otherwise, why would it be called an invasive species? There was also a broken sickle beside the bucket. This kind of sickle was very common among farmers. However, Zheng Tan felt that it was strange for such a little girl to use a sickle. Just as he was thinking about something, Zheng Tan looked up and met the little girl's eyes. Zheng Tan rarely saw such a fierce look in a child's eyes. Even some gloomy children wouldn't be like this. This was because there was a strong killing intent in this child's eyes. Zheng Tan had no doubt that if the child was holding a sickle in her hand, she would definitely slash at him. However, this child didn't have a sickle now. Zheng Tan was really not afraid of this child. Instead, he had some thoughts of teasing her. Afraid that he would cause trouble? Not good for these prawns? I still want to cause trouble. Zheng Tan extended his claws and quickly patted the few bearing prawns in the bucket. It had to be said that Zheng Tan was sometimes so bored that his balls hurt. He wouldn't feel good if he didn't court death. A clod was thrown over. Zheng Tan reacted quickly and dodged. However, the clod of soil brushed past the edge of the bucket containing the prawns. The bucket was originally placed on an uneven surface, so after brushing past it, it fell over after a few swings. The little girl couldn't care less about Zheng Tan. She quickly ran over and caught the prawns before they escaped and threw them back into the bucket. When she looked up again, she saw the black cat half hidden in the bushes. It poked its head out and looked over. When she got up, the black cat was already hiding in the bushes. There were a few rustling sounds in the bushes. When it stopped, the cat had already disappeared. The little girl standing in the same spot looked at the grass and frowned. She had a feeling that the cat was playing with her. However, when the cat was half hidden in the grass and looking over here, there was something wrong with its gaze. Many elders in the village said that black cats were more evil. Some said that they were spiritual creatures, while others said that they were evil. She didn't agree before. Wasn't it just a cat? It was purely to scare her. However, after what happened just now, she believed it a little. Zheng Tan walked in the grass, feeling uneasy. It wasn't because the little girl threw the clod at him, but because of what he saw just now. When the little girl bent down to catch the prawns and threw them back into the plastic bucket, her clothes, which were already short, were lifted up, revealing part of her back. Zheng Tan saw clearly that the girl's back was covered in scars, which seemed to be caused by a bamboo pole or other things. Originally, the girl's arms and legs also had some scars, but the scars were fainter. Zheng Tan didn't care. He heard from old Master Gu that it was common for some children in the village to fight. When they fought, they didn't differentiate between men and women. It wasn't strange for them to be injured. However, looking at it now, it wasn't strange. The scars on the girl's back were new. Even Zheng Tan felt pain just by looking at them, let alone a little girl who was the same age as little Pomelo. Abuse? Domestic violence? Zheng Tan wagged his tail. Jiao Ma and little Pomelo both told him not to cause trouble, so he didn't intend to meddle in other people's business. Besides, he couldn't do anything even if he wanted to. Every family had its own difficulties. There were many families like this. Whether it was in the city or in the village, there was no shortage of parents who beat their children. Therefore, after strolling around for a while, Zheng Tan caught a frog that popped out of nowhere and played with it for a while. Feeling much better, she looked at the sky and ran back to the place where little Pomelo and the others were fishing for prawns. When Zheng Tan returned, Jiao Yuan was showing off a relatively old prawn. The prawn had two big, fiery red pincers. Jiao Ma liked to eat this kind of big pincers. The meat inside was tender. Little Pomelo was changing the bait and tying the earthworms. Old Master Gu caught 4 fat earthworms and put them on the rope. Little Pomelo only needed to tie the rope. Beside the rope were 2 dead earthworms. One of them had been snapped in half by the prawn. Old Master Gu tied at least 3 earthworms to little Pomelo every time. He guessed that one of the earthworms had been directly caught by the prawn, or the earthworm had escaped on its own. After fishing for more than half an hour, Old Master Gu told the 2 children to stop fishing and get ready to go home. Seeing that little Pomelo still wanted to continue fishing, he smiled and said, "You can continue tomorrow. You still have a long summer vacation." Zheng Tan looked at the metal bucket containing the prawns. It was already half full. It was definitely enough to make a dish. Dinner was very sumptuous, and Zheng Tan also ate a full meal. When night fell, the villagers all took a bath in their own houses to cool off. They gossiped about the news around them and talked about the interesting things that happened that day. Old Master Gu moved the bamboo bed out of the house and even put a mosquito net on it. Little Pomelo stayed inside and listened to Old Master Gu talk about the past. As for Jiao Yuan, he was a restless person. He had already gone to catch fireflies with the children next door. Mosquito coils were lit next to him, but Zheng Tan could still clearly hear the buzzing of the mosquitoes around him. Ertong panted with its mouth open and tongue out. After lying down for a while, it changed to a cooler place to lie down. During dinner, it provoked Zheng Tan. After being slapped by Zheng Tan, it became much more obedient. Wherever Zheng Tan was, it would stay at least 1 meter away from him. At night in the village, the wind was cool, and the temperature was much lower than in the city. Originally, Zheng Tan was beside the bamboo bed, listening to Old Master Gu talk with little Pomelo. His ears twitched. Not far away, Jiao Ma and the old lady were sitting together and chatting with a few other women in the neighborhood. Sold another one? How could he bear to do that? Jiao Ma sighed. What's there to be sorry about? He has already sold 5 before. 1 more won't make a difference. I think the remaining 3 will be sold sooner or later, the old lady next door said. If they stay at home, they will be beaten to death by him sooner or later, the old lady sighed. Zheng Tan listened to their conversation. They were talking about a family in the neighboring village. The man wanted a son, but in the end he gave birth to 9 daughters in a row. In addition, this man was addicted to gambling and felt that there was no use in keeping his daughters. One after another, he sold his daughters and often beat them at home. Now that he finally gave birth to a son, the remaining 3 daughters no longer needed to eat or drink. Although birth control was the same for boys and girls, thousands of years of thinking could not be changed in a short 20 to 30 years. Moreover, many people were scoundrels. It was useless to talk to them about the law. The people around them did not have the heart to care about this kind of thing. They had probably seen too much and were numb to it. Listening to these women chatting, Zheng Tan suddenly thought of the little girl he saw today. He wondered if that child was one of them. Zheng Tan sighed in his heart. He lay on a bamboo chair and looked at the road not far away. There were some vegetable gardens on the other side of the road, and further away were the fields. Originally, he was watching the Jiao Yuan and the others catch fireflies on the other side of the road. Suddenly, Zheng Tan noticed a few people passing by. One of them sounded very familiar. Chapter 206. Zheng Tan stared at them nervously until they were far away. What were they doing here? Zheng Tan still remembered the phone call that person made at Chuhua University. It didn't sound like anything good. Other people couldn't hear what they were talking about, but Zheng Tan could. However, they were only talking about unimportant things, and Zheng Tan couldn't make any meaningful conclusions from their conversation. Well, if it was really important, they wouldn't be talking about it here. There were so many people around. Regardless, Zheng Tan's nerves were tense again. Even if those people were far away, Zheng Tan was still worried. He decided to follow little Pomelo and the others closely for the next few days. Even if those people's target wasn't little Pomelo, Zheng Tan didn't dare to let his guard down. There were many perverts in this world, and it was always better to be on guard. Who knew if these people would suddenly come up with some perverted idea? Thus, Zheng Tan couldn't sleep that night. Even if Jiao Yuan caught some fireflies, they couldn't divert Zheng Tan's attention. Looking at the ignorant children, Zheng Tan felt depressed. It wasn't good to know too much. Early the next morning, Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo were still sleeping in. Jiao Ma didn't disturb them. It wasn't easy to get a good night's sleep in summer. Zheng Tan jumped onto the roof and looked into the distance. Most of the people in the village woke up early to do more work before the temperature rose. The Gu family's house was still a tiled house with a pointed roof, but the residents next door had built a 3-story building. It looked pretty good. There was a kitten on the second-floor balcony next door. It was about 2 months old and was happily playing with a walnut. Zheng Tan jumped onto the railing of the second-floor balcony next door. The kitten was startled, but soon began to play with itself again. The window of the room on the second floor near the balcony was open. Zheng Tan could see the situation in the room from the railing. It seemed to be a boy's room. There were some toys like robots and artillery. There was also a 5th-grade language homework on the table. "Big sister, what do you slap on your face every day?" A boy's voice came from another room in the house. It was the boy who caught fireflies with Jiao Yuan yesterday. "Country bumpkin, this is called toner," the female voice said. At the same time, there were also slapping sounds. After a while, the boy walked into the room with a conflicted expression. He didn't have much of a reaction when he saw the black cat standing on the railing. He sat in front of his desk and flipped open his summer homework. He had homework assignments every day, and he was not allowed to go out to play until he finished them. Therefore, every morning after breakfast, he would immediately stay in his room to do his homework. In less than 5 minutes, the boy farted and ran out of the room holding his stomach. He probably went to the toilet. Zheng Tan was rather curious about what these children wrote in their diary and essays in their homework. Whenever he had nothing to do, he would flip through the diary and essays in front of little Pomelo. After all, it was not something private, and they were all about their daily lives. Jumping in through the window, Zheng Tan saw the place where the homework was opened. The boy was writing in the diary at the end of the day's homework. There, he wrote today's diary with a crooked pen. "Every morning when I wake up, I can see my big sister slapping herself in the mirror." Zheng Tan couldn't help but laugh. This child was really funny. He raised his paw and flipped through the diary in front of him. If he hadn't flipped through it, he wouldn't have known that this naughty boy was quite diligent in writing his diary. He even recorded some of his past misdeeds. For example, on which day he dug a trap in the village, on which day he dug another one, on which day he dug another one, on which day some of the traps had already fallen into, and on which places no one had gone and had been left there. Zheng Tan didn't expect to find such a reward. He noted down the places where no one had fallen into the traps. He didn't want little Pomelo and the others to fall into the traps when they went there. Although it was a child's prank and didn't cause much harm, falling into a trap was not a good feeling. When he heard footsteps coming over, Zheng Tan flipped the homework back to its original place. He jumped out of the window and returned to the Gu family's roof. When he heard Jiaoma calling him, he quickly went down to eat breakfast. Because the 2 children didn't have enough fun yesterday, old Master Gu took them to dig some earthworms today. In the afternoon, they went to the wild pond to fish for prawns. Zheng Tan stood to the side and watched for a while, then ran to other places to take a walk. Since Zheng Tan's performance yesterday was not bad, little Pomelo and the others didn't say anything. Actually, Zheng Tan didn't go for a walk because he was bored today. He wanted to see if the little girl from yesterday was still there. When he arrived at the place where he met the child yesterday, Zheng Tan didn't see her and was a little disappointed. Just as he was about to leave, he saw a figure walking over from afar. It was the little girl from yesterday. She was carrying the broken bucket from yesterday and carrying the broken scythe on her other shoulder as she walked over. However, when she got closer, Zheng Tan noticed that there were some new scars on the child's body. They were too obvious and couldn't be ignored even if he wanted to. No wonder she looked like she was having a hard time walking today. When the little girl saw Zheng Tan, she didn't have the same murderous intent and hostility as yesterday. Instead, she looked surprised and strange. She paused on the spot, then continued to walk forward. When she came to the place where she fished for prawns yesterday, she took out a wooden pole, tied the earthworms to it, and placed it in 3 places. Zheng Tan was curious why the little girl's attitude towards him had changed. He didn't get closer. Sensing the movement of the pole not far away, he looked at the little girl who was squatting there, thinking about something. He glanced around, bent his claws, picked up a small piece of soil, and threw it in that direction. The little girl, who was thinking about something, looked over when she sensed the movement. She saw the black cat that she thought was very strange. She saw the black cat look at the place where the pole was placed, then get up and walk over there. Zheng Tan retreated a few meters and watched the little girl guard the pole for a few seconds, then pick up a small prawn. After putting down the pole again, the little girl looked at Zheng Tan with a complicated expression, then walked over to the other pole. Zheng Tan saw that the little girl didn't have any resistance. Anyway, he had nothing to do. Seeing that she was pitiful, he helped to keep an eye on the other 2 poles, so that the little girl wouldn't keep walking. Didn't the scars on her legs hurt? So, gradually, the man and the cat formed a tacit understanding. The little girl guarded the pole on the far side, and Zheng Tan helped to keep an eye on the other 2 poles. Anyway, the distance between the 2 poles wasn't far, so it wasn't difficult for Zheng Tan. Once there was movement, Zheng Tan would pick up a small stone or a small piece of soil and throw it over, indicating that there was a prawn on her side that was about to take the bait. The little girl's bad mood from being beaten up improved a lot. She looked down and saw an old prawn approaching the earthworms. The corners of her mouth curled up. This old prawn looked meaty, and there was meat in the big pincers. She was lucky. Just as she thought of this, a piece of soil was thrown over and hit the little girl lightly. Then, it rolled down the slope of the shore and fell into the water with a splash. The old prawn that had just started to use the pincers to catch the earthworms disappeared with a whoosh, leaving only ripples on the water. The little girl was speechless. Rubbing her forehead and sighing, the little girl helplessly looked at the black cat that was not far away from her. It was raising its front paw and was ready to throw the second piece of soil. She got up and walked over. After fishing up the prawn, the little girl looked at the finger-sized prawn that was tightly holding the earthworms. She took it down and twisted off the prawn's head. Before Zheng Tan could see it clearly, there was a white and tender prawn ball in her hand that looked a little translucent. This action showed that she often did this kind of thing and was very familiar with it. After peeling the prawn, the little girl threw it over to Zheng Tan. Zheng Tan looked at it with disdain, then walked to the pole and continued to stare at it. The little girl was puzzled. Why didn't this cat eat it? She remembered that the big tabby cat next door ate it, and the cat at the village entrance also ate it. But this cat just now, its eyes were filled with disdain, right? Did it think that this one was too small? But that shouldn't be the case. Usually, when she cooked the prawns, if a cat came over, it would pick the small ones for her. She couldn't bear to part with the big ones. No matter if it was raw or cooked, the cat would eat it. Why was this black one different? Shaking her head, the little girl decided not to dwell on this problem. If it didn't want to eat it, then so be it. At least it could save some food. Black charcoal, little Pomelo's voice came from the other side. Zheng Tan didn't guard the pole anymore and ran back. Little Pomelo didn't sound like she was in danger. She was just asking Zheng Tan to go back. Black charcoal? What a terrible name. It's not even as good as Big Black in the village, the little girl whispered as she watched the black cat disappear. Looking at the other 2 poles, he sighed and got up to look at the poles. Running back to little Pomelo's side, Zheng Tan heard the Jiao Yuan bragging to old Master Gu. How was it? I told you that black charcoal would definitely come back immediately. Little Pomelo turned on the kettle and took out the lid to pour Zheng Tan some water. She was afraid that Zheng Tan would be thirsty on such a hot day. Zheng Tan was proud. His child was indeed the best. Old Master Gu curled his lips and thought to himself, "It's just a cat. Look at how much you spoil it." But Old Master Gu could only keep it to himself and didn't dare to say it out loud. He didn't want Little Pomelo and the Jiao Yuan to be dissatisfied with him because of this matter. After drinking the water, Zheng Tan stayed there for a while before running to the little girl's side. She was also drinking water, but she wasn't using a kettle. Instead, she was using a mineral water bottle. It seemed that she had been using it for a while. In the following days, Little Pomelo and the others went out to fish for prawns, and Zheng Tan took some time to help the little girl keep an eye on the poles. The little girl seemed to go to the wild pond to fish for prawns every day. However, when Little Pomelo and the others didn't go out, Zheng Tan also stayed in the house. One day, Old Master Gu took Little Pomelo and the Jiao Yuan to watch others fish. On the way back from the fish pond, they passed by a fork in the road and Zheng Tan saw the little girl. They hadn't seen each other for a few days. The child's old injuries hadn't healed, and now she had new ones. Even if her bones couldn't be healed, this kind of physical pain was too much for a 10-year-old child. Little Pomelo saw that Zheng Tan seemed to be familiar with the little girl. She looked at the little girl's clothes and the injuries on her body. She took out a few milk candies from her pocket and gave them to him. Because of Zhao, the Jiao family never lacked snacks. They didn't even need Jiao Ma to buy them. Every once in a while, Zhao would have someone send food over. They couldn't even finish eating. Before the summer break, Zhao had sent over a few big boxes of milk candies, and they were all high-end goods. The Jiao Yuan had already brought them over. Because the weather was too hot, they only brought a few with them when they went out. Little Pomelo only ate one today and gave the rest to the little girl. She felt that the person Zheng Tan knew should be a good person. The little girl looked at Little Pomelo and the black cat standing next to Little Pomelo with a complicated expression. She said, "Thank you," and left. Zheng Tan looked at Old Master Gu's expression and knew that he probably knew something. However, when Little Pomelo and the Jiao Yuan asked about it, Old Master Gu didn't say anything. He was afraid that it would affect the two children negatively. That night, when Zheng Tan was outside enjoying the cool breeze, he overheard Old Master Gu and Old Madam Gu talking about the little girl in low voices. He knew that the child was indeed born in the family of the person they were talking about. She was the 9th child and the youngest of the 9 girls. It was their misfortune to have a father who favored boys over girls and would hit and scold them whenever he was unhappy. Zheng Tan also heard from Old Master Gu that the child would be sold by her father sooner or later. Luckily, she had 2 older sisters. Once the 2 older sisters were sold, it would probably be her turn. Chapter 207. Although it was hot in August, there were also times when it rained. Zheng Tan squatted in front of the window and looked at the scenery outside. A toad the size of a fist calmly crawled from one side of the cement road to the other side of the road not far from the door. The croaking of frogs could be heard everywhere outside. Little Pomelo was lying on the table drawing. The electric fan had also stopped. The wind outside the window was humid and cool. Zheng Tan looked in the direction of the wild pond. He didn't know where the little girl would go today. Recently, Little Pomelo and the others only went there to fish for prawns every few days. They didn't run to the wild pond every day. However, Zheng Tan went there to help the little girl when he had time. On sunny days, the little girl would fish for prawns at the wild pond. On rainy days, she might be catching frogs. The little girl looked thin and weak. 2 days ago, Zheng Tan saw her use a broken part of her sickle to kill a snake as thick as a finger. At that time, the child didn't show any fear. Her expression didn't even change much during the whole process. To be honest, there was a little excitement in her eyes. Snakes were also meat. Zheng Tan looked at her. The little girl was probably used to it. Who knew how many snakes she had killed with that sickle? She was brave enough to be stronger than the average child. After the rain stopped, Zheng Tan went to the wild pond the next day. After waiting for a while, he saw the little girl walking over with the equipment. Seeing Zheng Tan waiting there, the little girl's frown eased and she quickly walked over. Although it had just rained yesterday, the temperature quickly rose once the rain stopped. In addition to the sun in the morning, many places were not so wet. In another day or two, some of the dirt roads that people often walked on would be as dry as they were a few days ago. They tied the earthworms, set the rod, and then divided the work. After 2 or 3 hours, they could still catch some. However, the wild pond was only so big. After fishing for so long, the harvest was not as good as when they first started. The little girl left the wild pond at 6 o'clock in the evening every day. Zheng Tan couldn't do it. He had to go back around 5 o'clock. Otherwise, he would have to listen to Jiao Ma's nagging again. Zheng Tan didn't need a watch. He could estimate the approximate time by looking at the sun above his head. The little girl also knew that the black cat would have to return every afternoon at a certain time. But today was different. Zheng Tan was looking at the rod, staring at the string. When there were prawns, the string would tighten, and the larger prawns would even pull on the rod. Seeing a shrimp clamping an earthworm, Zheng Tan motioned for the little girl to come over. After hooking up the prawn, the little girl didn't put the rod down again. Instead, she put the fish away. So early today? Zheng Tan was puzzled. After tidying up, the little girl asked Zheng Tan to follow her. Although he didn't quite understand what the little girl wanted to do, it was still early. Zheng Tan followed her. Walking to a small forest area nearby, the little girl hid the wooden rod to prevent other children from taking it away. Then she quickly disposed of the prawns in the bucket, leaving only the prawns and some big clamps. The rest was thrown away. This way, she could save a lot of energy. In the forest, Zheng Tan saw that person again. There were 3 people walking by together. Zheng Tan hid in the grass and stared in that direction. He also pulled the little girl who was cleaning up the prawns, indicating that she should hide. Seeing the black cat so vigilant, the little girl thought that something dangerous had happened. She didn't care about the prawns and immediately hid behind the bushes. She lay on the ground and looked in that direction through the gaps in the bushes. After the 3 people left, Zheng Tan's tense muscles relaxed. Who are they? Did they beat you? The little girl looked at Zheng Tan in confusion. The little girl didn't know them? Previously, Zheng Tan thought that the little girl's sisters had been sold to these people by their father. But now it seemed that it was different from what he had imagined. If they were sold to these people, the little girl should not know any of them, right? For a moment, Zheng Tan really couldn't think of a reason. After leaving the place where the wooden rod was hidden, the little girl took Zheng Tan a little further away and stopped near an orchard. There was a metal net around the orchard, so it was probably heavily guarded. There was a small stone bridge here, but the original stream under the stone bridge had been dried up for many years and was overgrown with weeds. Moreover, it seemed that people didn't often come here. The little girl slid down the slope and parted the grass. There was a hole inside. Zheng Tan watched as she took out some things one after another, including a small aluminum pot. There were some green bricks near the edge of the stone bridge. There were burn marks on the bricks. Zheng Tan watched as she placed the bricks in an N shape. Then, she placed a small aluminum pot on top of the bricks. She placed some hay and firewood in the crack at the bottom. She lit the firewood and began to cook the prawns. It was very simple boiled prawns. Zheng Tan didn't have any appetite, but the little girl seemed to be staring at something delicious. After cooking, the little girl handed Zheng Tan a prawn ball. Zheng Tan didn't eat it, so she finished it all. After eating, she put everything back in its original place. The little girl told Zheng Tan that this was her secret base. She would come here most of the time when it was time to eat and would only go home to sleep at night. When she mentioned going home, there was disgust in her eyes. It was almost dark, so Zheng Tan couldn't stay here all the time. After Zheng Tan had left, the little girl walked to another spot and parted the bushes. There was a wide-mouthed glass can inside, and the candies that little Pomelo had given her were stored inside the glass can. She had already eaten 3 candies. Looking at the remaining 2 candies, she sighed. After hesitating for a while, she picked up one of the candies and carefully tore open the wrapping paper. After taking out the candies, she tidied up the plastic wrapping paper and placed it inside the can. There were already 4 wrapping papers stacked inside. With the candies in her mouth, the little girl leaned against the slope and lay down. The milky and sweet smell of the candies made her like it so much that her eyes narrowed. At night, Zheng Tan was in a bad mood and couldn't sleep, so he went outside to pee. He wasn't used to using the toilet, but seeing that many children here directly found a place to pee, Zheng Tan also went to a place where there was no one to pee secretly. Zheng Tan jumped out of the window and ran out of the backyard. He didn't want to go near it. Anyway, he couldn't sleep now, so he ran further away to pee. Zheng Tan didn't find it very quiet at night in the village. The sounds of insects and frogs were constant, and occasionally, dogs barked. In the night, Zheng Tan's movements were not blocked. Sometimes, he would run into cats raised by other people in the village. Some of them provoked him, but Zheng Tan wasn't in the mood to pay attention to them. Enjoying the night breeze, he walked for a while and then found a place to pee. As Zheng Tan was peeing, his ears twitched. Someone was coming this way. Originally, he didn't want to pay attention to it and go back after peeing, but the sound made Zheng Tan stop in his tracks. It was really fate. He met this guy once during the day, and now he met this guy again at night. Zheng Tan hid in a corner and waited for the people to come closer. Only 2 people came over. One was the person Zheng Tan knew who he had pushed into the artificial lake, and the other was probably a villager here with an accent. The 2 people reeked of alcohol, and their conversation was all about the gossip in the village, with some dirty jokes. However, Zheng Tan noticed that the villager called the person next to him, Snakehead. Zheng Tan didn't hear them talk about some of the core issues, and he was a little disappointed. However, it was rare to run into someone who was drunk. Zheng Tan was in the right place at the right time at the right time. If he didn't teach Zheng Tan a lesson, he wouldn't be able to feel at ease. Thinking about it, Zheng Tan suddenly remembered something written in the diary of the guy who lived next door. According to the description, there should be a trap around here. Zheng Tan quietly ran in front of them from the side. Following the dirt road, there was a fork in the road. According to the guy's diary, behind the house of the 4th last house, there was a hole in the backyard between the fence and the dirt road. They didn't dare to blatantly dig a hole on this dirt road. They would be beaten. Digging not far from the roadside, some villagers turned a blind eye. Anyway, they only walked on the dirt road. As for the side, it was obvious that there was a hole there, and even weeds didn't grow. However, in the middle of the night, especially after drinking, their consciousness was not so clear, and they couldn't see or remember the obvious trap. Zheng Tan easily found the trap. It was about 3 or 4 meters away from the dirt road, and there were a lot of weeds around. It could be seen that very few people came here. The trap dug by the children was very simple. They dug a square pit about half a meter long, and then put a few thin wooden sticks on it, and covered it with some grass. Zheng Tan also smelled the stench coming from inside. He guessed that the children would pee here from time to time. Otherwise, if it was just a hole, it would be too simple and they would have dug it in vain. Zheng Tan tested the carrying capacity of the thin wooden stick. If he stood on it, he would definitely fall, let alone an adult. The 2 people were getting closer and closer. Zheng Tan hid on the other side of the dirt road, which was different from the trap. Although he had drunk, Snakehead still had his vigilance. He kept feeling that someone was watching him. He held the flashlight and shone it around. Other than a few jumping insects, there was nothing else. Could it be that he drank too much? What's wrong? The villager who was talking excitedly saw Snakehead stop and asked. Nothing. Snakehead shook his head and continued to walk forward. The villager didn't mind and continued with what he was about to say. However, Snakehead still had a strange feeling. Ka! A soft sound came from the side. Who? Snakehead looked in the direction of the sound. However, when he shone his flashlight over, he only saw the wooden fence of the vegetable garden in the backyard of the family. The villager was about to say something when Snakehead raised his hand to stop him. The hand that wasn't holding the flashlight pulled out a dagger from his waist. He first looked in the direction opposite the wooden fence to make sure that no one would sneak and attack from behind. There was no place to hide. Only then did he turn around and walk towards the vegetable garden. There were many places to hide there, such as the outhouse and a simple wooden shed. Zheng Tan hid in the grass. The grass at this height indeed couldn't hide a person, but it was just enough to hide a cat. At the same time, Zheng Tan sighed in his heart. This person's vigilance was indeed very high. Last time, he had been able to push him into the lake mostly because of luck. However, this was just right. He had only thrown a piece of dirt in that direction, and he had gone over. At the same time, from another perspective, did this mean that this guy had done something wrong, so he had to be more careful? When the villager saw this, he swallowed his saliva and looked around. It was pitch black. He couldn't even see a meter away from him. Only the area illuminated by the flashlight could be seen more clearly. He didn't bring a flashlight. He followed Snakehead, but he didn't dare get too close to him. What if he hurt himself? Zheng Tan watched as Snakehead approached the trap. However, Snakehead's path was slightly off from where the trap was. If he walked straight, he would probably be able to walk right past the edge of the trap. Snakehead felt that there was definitely someone hiding around. The feeling of being watched wasn't an illusion. No matter what, it was better to be vigilant. Pooh! There was a slight sound from the wooden shed. Snakehead tightened his grip on the dagger in his hand and walked a few steps in that direction. He deviated from his original path and said to the wooden shed, "Come out. I see you." Before he could finish the word "View," Snakehead felt a strong force coming from the back of his waist. This time, Snakehead wasn't directly pushed down. He only moved 2 steps to the side to dodge out of reflex. Under normal circumstances, he would have been able to stand firm. Unfortunately, the place where his feet landed made a few cracking sounds. His feet sank and his entire body fell to the side. Snakehead knew that the villager was standing not far behind him. He had also confirmed that there was no one else in the area behind him, so Snakehead didn't pay too much attention to his back. However, such a situation still happened. When he fell, Snakehead was still cursing in his heart. F***ck, this is the second time. Other than that time when he was pushed into the lake for no reason at Tsinghua University, this is the second time he's been hit for no reason at all. What the hell is going on? Chapter 208. Snakehead had sprained his ankle. Because it was summer, he was wearing cropped underwear. When his foot sank in, it was cut by a few broken tree branches. The trap was not deep. Snakehead had only sunk up to his knees, but there were all kinds of filth inside. There was rotten melon pulp, other household trash, and the smell of urine. Snakehead's anger soared, but now was not the time to flip out. He did not care about the injury on his foot. He held the flashlight steady and held the dagger, trying to find out who was going against him. The villager standing not far behind Snakehead felt that something had brushed past him. Goosebumps rose on his body, especially when he heard Snakehead say that he was possessed. He felt a chill run down his back. I really didn't see anything just now. I just felt a little cold. The villager shivered. He actually believed in ghosts and gods, and he had done some bad things for Snakehead. Now that he thought about it, he felt guilty. He felt that he had been targeted by some dirty thing. Snakehead had made a lot of noise when he stepped into the trap. This family had a dog at home, and it was barking. Zheng Tan decided to add fuel to the fire. After he pushed Snakehead, he quickly ran into the vegetable garden. The distance between the fence was just enough for him to cross, so he did not need to jump. He found a stone from the surroundings, and before Snakehead noticed him, he threw it fiercely at the family's window. Put! The sound of glass shattering rang out. The dog inside barked even louder, and the lights in the house lit up. The back door creaked open, and a big, sturdy dog rushed out. It easily jumped over the fence and bit at Snakehead. It bit the arm that was holding the knife. The dagger fell to the ground. A scream disturbed the silence of the night. Zheng Tan was hiding beside the wooden shed. He wagged his tail. It was painful to listen to. Damn it. The dog must have had similar experience in catching thieves. It was too fast when it charged over. There was no hesitation when it jumped over the fence to bite the man. It was unclear whether it had bitten the man's arm that was holding the knife by accident or on purpose. In any case, Zheng Tan thought that the dog's bite was a good one. The owner of the house who had rushed out with a hoe was murderous. He thought that a thief had come, but after taking a closer look, he recognized the villager with Snakehead. After listening to him explain for a long time, he realized that it was a misunderstanding. However, the dog had bitten. As for the trap, it was dug by the children in the village. Many people knew that it had nothing to do with him. The owner of the house was also a tough character. After seeing Snakehead's dagger on the ground, his expression became worse. How could he take responsibility? In the end, Snakehead could only blame himself for being unlucky. Jing Tan took the opportunity to slip away while they were arguing. The dog barked at Snakehead and did not look anywhere else. With the cover of the night, no one noticed Jing Tan, so it was easy to slip away. The next day, Old Master Gu took the two children to a friend's place to see turtles. He planned to buy a few turtles for the children to play with. When the time came, they could bring them back to Chu Hua City to raise. Anyway, these little turtles did not take up much space. Before leaving, someone came to look for Old Master Gu. Thus, the plan to go out in the morning was pushed to the afternoon. There was nothing to do in the morning, so little Pomelo was drawing. Jing Tan looked at it. It was a drawing of the little girl carrying a broken bucket and a sickle. I heard that she is often beaten. She is so thin. Will she get sick? Little Pomelo said to Jing Tan, who was lying on the table as she drew. After drawing, little Pomelo thought of something and asked Jing Tan, "Do you know where she is?" Jing Tan thought for a moment and nodded. Although he did not know where the girl was now, it was enough to know where she would go. Jing Tan rarely played dumb when he was alone with little Pomelo. Anyway, little Pomelo would not talk nonsense outside, so sometimes he had to express his meaning more directly. Little Pomelo got down from the chair, rummaged through her bag, and took out a bag of candy. It was unopened, and there were about 20 pieces in each bag. "Give this to her. I still have a lot." Little Pomelo looked at Jing Tan expectantly. Jing Tan nodded again. He quite agreed with little Pomelo's way of doing things. That girl's life was really distressing, and a bag of candy was not something important to little Pomelo. Little Pomelo wiped the edges of the bag of candy with water and handed it to Jing Tan. She knew that the black cat in front of her was sometimes a little misophobic and did not like to take things randomly. Jing Tan ran out with the bag of candy in his mouth. He did not go to the wild pond. That girl was usually not at the wild pond in the morning, so Jing Tan went directly to the secret base that the girl had taken him to last time. Not seeing the girl, Jing Tan directly put the bag of candy in the place where she had hidden things and went back. Not long after Jing Tan left, the little girl, who was tanned from the sun, came over. She glanced at the place where she had hidden things and knew that it had been rummaged through. Her eyes narrowed, thinking that someone had stolen something, so she quickly ran over and pushed aside the grass. What entered her eyes was a bag of candy, and the packaging was very familiar. She had just finished the candy last time. Last night when she went to sleep, she regretted that there was another bag of candy in her dream. She did not expect that there was really another bag of candy. She carefully tore open the bag, peeled a candy and put it in her mouth. Then she hid the rest of the candy and looked around carefully. Finally, she found a place where the cat's footprints were shallow. After a while, when the wind blew the dust away, the footprints would not be seen. In a good mood, the little girl decided to go home to see if there were any leftovers. At this time, the family should have finished eating. Then in the afternoon, she would go to the wild pond to fish for prawns. Just as she stepped into the house, the little girl found that there were guests in the house. She had seen these 3 guests before in the forest. The black cat was wary of these people, so they were definitely not good people. "This is my family's little Gio." Sitting on a chair and smoking a cigarette with a flattering smile, the man said as he pointed at the little girl who had just entered the house. He was the head of the household. Sensing that something was wrong, the little girl turned and prepared to run away. But before she could run out of the door, she was firmly held in place. On the other side, Old Master Gu took the 2 children to see the turtles. This farmer mainly raised turtles and turtles. Seeing that the 2 children liked them, the man planned to give a few Brazilian turtle seedlings to little Pomelo and the others. Old Master Gu waved his hand. He only wanted 2. He could not raise more. After all, they were children. The man also gave them a glass fish tank. Old Master Gu did not like to owe people. The 2 of them pushed back and forth. In the end, Old Master Gu stuffed 20 yuan to the man. "Hey, Uncle Gu, I really don't need 20. The man was about to continue, but after being glared at by Old Master Gu, he stopped talking. He shook his head and went into the house with a smile. When he came out, he took 2 bags of turtle feed and stuffed them into the glass fish tank. Without waiting for old Master Gu to say anything, he left. On the way back, the two children played with the turtles as they walked, so they slowed down a lot. Zheng Tan stopped to wait for them. A toad jumped out of the grass. Zheng Tan had nothing to do, so he went over to tease it. The toad kept jumping forward. When it jumped into the grass on the side of the road, Zheng Tan pressed it to the ground with his paw. No matter how much it croaked, he did not let go. He thought to himself, "Let's see where you can jump to, little thing." After waiting for 2 minutes, Zheng Tan slowly let go of his paw. The toad immediately jumped away as if it was running for its life. It crossed the cement road and disappeared into the field on the other side. Zheng Tan was squatting in the grass, watching the toad disappear. A Santara drove over. It was likely that a truck had been hauling stones in the morning. There were some small stones scattered on the road. When the Santana pulled over, it slowed down to avoid the stones on the side and continued to drive. When the Santara bypassed the stones, Zheng Tan saw the person leaning against the window of the back seat. He also saw the person sitting in the driver's seat. The person in the driver's seat was smoking, and the window was all open. Zheng Tan saw the driver. Last time, this person was with the smuggler, so they should be in cahoots. The window of the back seat was half open because it was tinted. Only half of the person's face was exposed, but Zheng Tan still recognized him easily. The other party had also seen Zheng Tan squatting in the bushes. Why was the girl in the car? And with those people? When he heard what the girl said, Zheng Tan thought that they did not come to the village to buy children, but now it seemed that Zheng Tan was wrong. Without thinking much, Zheng Tan chased after the car. But how could a cat be faster than a car? Besides, the road was flat, there were no other cars around, and the car was driving fast. After bypassing the stones, the car began to accelerate, as if in a hurry to leave, and soon left Zheng Tan behind. Zheng Tan could only watch helplessly as the car drove further and further away until it became a black dot and disappeared from sight. In the car, the girl, who was leaning against the window, moved her gaze back. Even when she was beaten up by her father, she did not cry when she knew that she was being sold. But now her eyes were red, and tears kept falling. 10 years. She had lived in this village for 10 years. When she finally left, the only one who asked her to stay was a cat. The person who was responsible for watching her looked at the back window of the car and did not see anyone chasing after them. Then he looked at the girl next to her and thought that she was just a child who did not want to leave home. It was normal for a child to cry when taken away by strangers. She did not cry before, so they felt that there was something wrong with the girl. Now they were relieved. Zheng Tan lay on the side of the cement road and panted. The car had disappeared from his sight. He wanted to remember the license plate, but found that it was covered by a screen. He did not understand. Even if they wanted to buy children, didn't the girl have 2 older sisters? How could it be her turn so soon? When he returned listlessly, little Pomelo was calling Zheng Tan's cat name. From her voice, he could tell that she was very anxious. Seeing that Zheng Tan had returned, little Pomelo was about to say something, but she found that Zheng Tan's condition was not right, so she did not scold him. In the next few days, everyone noticed that something was wrong with Zheng Tan. He was usually so energetic, but now he was listless, as if he was not interested in anything. After going out once, he became even more listless and his appetite decreased. Old Master Gu said that he must have missed the female cats. He even specially borrowed 2 strong female cats from someone else's house. In the end, when the 2 cats saw Zheng Tan, they stayed far away from her. No matter what, they wouldn't get close to her. Even if they got a female cat in heat, they wouldn't get close to Zheng Tan. Jiaoma wanted to take him to the vet, but Zheng Tan did not go. In order to reassure Jiaoma and the others, Zheng Tan's appetite returned to normal, but he did not look as energetic as before. These few days, after Zheng Tan returned, he went to the girl's secret base a few times to make sure that she did not return. One night when he was outside enjoying the cool breeze, he heard people talking about it. They sold another one so soon? I heard that they sold Little 9 this time. Little 7 and Little 8 are still around. Why did they choose Little 9? Who knows? Maybe they saw that Little 9 was the youngest and decided to buy it. Sigh, that child didn't even finish 1st grade, but I heard that her grades were good in school. That little Nine's temper is very fierce. She is completely different from her sisters. How could they sell her? A young voice sounded. What nonsense are you talking about? If you don't know, then shut up. An old man next to him scolded. Sigh, what a sin. Zheng Tan went to the neighboring village to find the girl's house, but he heard that her father had fallen into a fish pond the night before when he was drunk. He was rescued and sent to the hospital in town. His life was not in danger, but he had to stay in the hospital for a while. Zheng Tan did not hear any other useful information. The people in the village, including the girl's family, only knew that little Nine had been sold. As for why she was sold to those people, they did not know. Chapter 209. Before returning to Chuhua City, Jiaoma took the two children to the county town. Grandpa Jiao and Grandma Yang were living in the county town. She couldn't bring the children out during the summer vacation and not visit them, right? Zheng Tan was familiar with the house in the county town because he had been there on the National Day last year. Grandma Yang and Grandma Yang were very happy to see Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo. Grandma Yang had prepared the dishes in advance and insisted that the two children stay here for a few more days. Anyway, as long as they could make it in time for the registration, there was no need to go back so early. Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo didn't want to go out in the summer. Unlike Grandma Yang and Grandma Yang, Jiao Yuan was afraid of the heat. He spent most of his time in the air-conditioned room. He couldn't stand the heat with only an electric fan because the wind was hot. It was also good to stay in the air-conditioned room and play chess with little Pomelo. Zheng Tan didn't stay in the house. He felt bored and suddenly missed the feeling of running around in the countryside. The sun was a little low in the afternoon. Zheng Tan went out along the shady side of the road for a walk. Jiaoma didn't force Zheng Tan to stay at home because she saw that Zheng Tan's mental state was not very good. Seeing Zheng Tan go out, Jiaoma thought to herself, it's good to go out for a walk. As long as he recovers, he can do whatever he wants. Zheng Tan looked at the scenery and buildings on the side of the road. He remembered this place. He had been here once last year, but he didn't walk too far. There was a small stall selling cold dishes on the side of the road. There were quite a lot of people here. When Zheng Tan passed by, he heard a few people talking at the cold dish stall. They were talking about a burglary that happened in a newly built community not far away. Zheng Tan walked over to take a look. The neighborhood wasn't big. It was newly built, and the greenery wasn't particularly good. However, there were quite a lot of onlookers on this hot day. Some people who couldn't squeeze into the shade were holding umbrellas or using fans to cover their heads as they gathered there to discuss something. However, Zheng Tan did not plan to go in. There were two men in police uniforms squatting in the shade beside the guardhouse. Zheng Tan could hear their conversation. We finally caught this guy. We didn't waste our time coming here under the sun. Brother Huang, do you think thieves nowadays can commit crimes in broad daylight? They are really bold. One of the young men who looked to be in his early 20s said, the weather is hot and no one goes out during the day. Everyone stays at home. This is a newly built neighborhood, and the neighbors are not familiar with each other. As long as there is no one in the house, a thief can just break in. No one will say anything if he moves a big color TV out. But I didn't expect that family to bring back a dog last night. Another middle-aged man in a police uniform took a sip from a mineral water bottle and replied, I didn't expect such a small puppy to be so lethal. When I entered the living room and saw so much blood on the floor, I was shocked. I heard that the owner's friend asked them to take care of the dog. Now the family treats the dog as a hero and sent it to the pet hospital. If it weren't for the fact that they couldn't leave here, they would have followed the dog to the pet hospital. Listening to the two policemen, Zheng Tan could roughly guess what happened. When there was a thief in the courtyard, Niu Zhuangzhuang was also fierce. But today, the hero dog that caught the thief was a Pekingese. Compared to the delicate Pekingese in the courtyard, this one was simply domineering. The topic of the two policemen gradually changed. Zheng Tan didn't plan to continue listening. He was ready to leave and continue walking, but he didn't expect them to talk about the Jiaoma's town. When he heard the words, selling daughter, Zheng Tan stopped and pricked up his ears. Hey, Brother Huang, didn't you work there before you transferred here? Do you know about this? The family that gave birth to 9 daughters in a row and then sold them one after another? Of course I know. Zheng Tan inched closer to her. Really? No one cares? The young man's face was full of disbelief. K? The middle-aged policeman wiped the sweat on his forehead. Yes, but it's a pity that one of them is willing to be beaten and the other is willing to be beaten. If you insist on taking care of it, you will be beaten back. Who is willing to be sold? The young man didn't believe it. Being sold is actually better. Why wouldn't they want to be free from the cage? For them, even if they were sold to other people as wives, they would be starved and beaten at home. They might even have a good life. The man sighed and shook his head. Beating children is very common in the village, but selling children is different. I was also a hot-blooded person. After listening to the gossip of the villagers, I went to take care of it. At that time, I thought that as long as the child admitted that she was sold, I would go all out and investigate to the end. Unfortunately, they didn't say anything. Even at the trial, they would still have the same story. Instead, I would be accused of something bad. Didn't you see that the villagers didn't care? Do you really think that it's just a threat from a hooligan like their father? Many people in the village don't care about hooligans at all. It's purely out of helplessness. What about the last one? I heard that the child has a stubborn temper. I heard from my uncle that the child will not be sold obediently. Then it's probably because the buyer is different. The man thought of something and his face turned serious. He said to the young policeman, "Don't ask about it in the future." Seeing that the young man obviously didn't take it seriously, the middle-aged man said, "I don't want to hear the news that you have been dragged to be fed to the shrimps." The young man's face changed, then he smiled and said, "Don't worry, I don't have that much free time." They had previously handled a murder case. The victim was thrown into a wild pond. When he was found, he was already eaten by shrimps. There was no progress in the investigation until now. In the end, it became a case with no leads. The topic of the two men quickly changed. Zheng Tan didn't need to continue listening. The middle-aged policeman obviously didn't work for nothing all these years. He probably knew some things. However, seeing that they didn't want to talk about it at all, Zheng Tan couldn't hear what he wanted to hear. He was even more suspicious. He had felt that it was strange before. Why did those people choose Little Nine? If it was really like what the villagers said, Little Nine's age and personality were not suitable to be sold as wives or other special jobs. However, they skipped over the two older sisters and went straight to her. This question remained unanswered until Zheng Tan returned to Chuhua City. Once home, the Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo went to work on the two turtles. Zheng Tan followed the Jiao Ma to the third floor to see the kittens. They were more than a month old and were much stronger than normal kittens. They were obviously bigger too. Peanut Candy was the same. The two kittens' destructive power was directly proven by the cloth sofa in Air Mao's living room. It was completely covered in a layer of fur. There were also many scratches on the tables and chairs. There were only two of them, but they were already in such a state. When Zheng Tan entered the door, the two were jumping up and down. When they saw the Jiao Ma, they growled and didn't seem afraid at all. However, when they saw Zheng Tan, the two seemed to be close. As for Black Rice, it was probably annoyed by the two. It was sleeping on Air Mao's bed in the bedroom. It didn't even bother to open its eyes. Only its ears moved, indicating that it was paying attention to its surroundings. The two were now eating some meat with Air Mao. They had a big appetite and strong stomachs. Perhaps it was because the Monsignor gene was too powerful. According to Air Mao, Black Rice was starting to dislike them. I don't think these two will stay for long. Black Rice has been going crazy more and more recently. Air Mao sighed and pointed to their respective nests for the Jiao Ma to see. They didn't even stay in the same nest. During the day, they would play around and sometimes lick each other's fur. It seemed like they had a good relationship. However, if they stayed in the same nest, they would easily fight. This phenomenon wasn't obvious when they couldn't run. Now that they could run and jump, the more they grew, the more obvious it was. Zheng Tan was silent. It seemed that it was because of the Monsignor gene. "Where do you plan to send these two?" the Jiao Ma asked. "I think I'll send them somewhere far away." Air Mao was a little reluctant. After all, it had seen them grow so big day by day. It didn't feel good to suddenly send them away. Mao had thought of sending them to Celestine or Walnut or some other familiar people, but who knew that these two would directly reject it? Being able to get along with cats didn't mean that they were willing to raise them. The Jiao Ma and Mao sat on the sofa and chatted. Zheng Tan watched the two kittens play around in front of him. Although they still looked young when they were playing around, they looked quite fierce. Moreover, when Zheng Tan listened to their low growls, he found that these two's growls were different from the ones in the pet center. Zheng Tan had worked with many kittens in the advertisement and knew their growls. Although different breeds of cats might have different growls, it wouldn't be like these two. Zheng Tan couldn't quite remember what Peanut Candy's growls were when he was young. After all, Peanut Candy was educated by Li Yuanba all day long at the pet center. Zheng Tan didn't have much contact with him. When he had more contact with him, that guy had already grown up. During these few days at home, Zheng Tan didn't go out too far. At most, he walked around the campus. When school started, Zheng Tan's life would return to the rhythm before the summer vacation. On this day, Zheng Tan decided to go to the construction site and take a look at the blind old man. Was the old man still sticking to his post on such a hot day? When he passed by Zhong Yan's neighborhood, Zheng Tan glanced at it. It seemed that Zhong Yan's house was empty. Zhong Yan, that guy, had directly soared to the sky in the college entrance examination this time. He was in the top 3 of the school and entered the capital university. This made the other members of his family very angry. After running around the construction site, Zheng Tan didn't see Zhong Yan. He guessed that he had already registered in the capital. It seemed that in the future, there would be one less acquaintance here. When he was about to leave, Zheng Tan heard someone calling his name. The voice sounded familiar. Zheng Tan turned his head and looked. A man in a blue vest and a hard hat ran over. It was the man called Brother Ning, who had helped Zhong Yan. "Hey, you are finally here again." Brother Ning took out 50 yuan from his trouser pocket and said to Zheng Tan, "Let's go. I'll buy you something to eat." Before Zhong Yan left, he specially told me that he would treat you to a good meal when you come over. He even gave me the money. Brother Ning said several words in a row. Then he suddenly remembered that he was just facing a cat. Did it understand what he was saying? However, the black cat didn't leave. Brother Ning lifted his feet and walked forward. After 2 steps, he turned back and saw that the cat was indeed following him. He muttered in his heart, "This cat really understands what I'm saying. No wonder it is a cat that the top student knows." Zheng Tan followed him and saw that Brother Ning stopped in front of a restaurant that sold boxed lunches. He picked some meat and fish. After paying, Brother Ning turned back and was about to say something. However, he found that the black cat, which was squatting next to him, ran away quickly. Zheng Tan was indeed waiting for Brother Ning to buy lunch. Not far from them was a bus stop. When Zheng Tan inadvertently glanced over, he found that among the people who had just got off the bus was the driver of the Santala. Chapter 210. The man looked in a hurry, as if there was something urgent. When he got off the bus, he almost knocked down an old lady. He was scolded by several young people next to him, but he didn't care. He just walked on his own and quickly left the platform. Zheng Tan followed closely behind. He felt that if he could see Xiao Jiao, maybe this was the last chance to help her. If he missed this chance, he may never see her again. Because he often wandered in this area, Zheng Tan also had some understanding of the surrounding layout, especially the places that had been demolished or were about to be demolished. The direction of the man in front of him was a private residential area, which was not included in the demolition area. At least, this area would not be moved in the next few years. Although there was no construction site nearby, there was a road construction nearby. During the day, the thump-thump sound was constant, which was annoying. In addition to the noise, there was also air pollution. The residents around were wearing masks and hats. They came and went in a hurry, for fear of staying here for a long time. Zheng Tan watched the man take out a tissue to cover his nose, quickly walked to a house, and took out the key to open the door. "Live here?" Zheng Tan looked around and didn't see the Santala. It was estimated that the car was not parked here, or it had been disposed of. Otherwise, the man wouldn't have squeezed into the bus. Looking around, the anti-theft window was well installed. It was too close, Zheng Tan couldn't squeeze in. He wanted to find the kitchen, but he couldn't find it. However, Zheng Tan found the toilet on the first floor. How many times had he searched the toilet? Zheng Tan sighed in his heart. He could smell the stench outside. He didn't know how long these people hadn't cleaned the toilet. It was estimated that it was dirty inside, but for the girl, Zheng Tan decided to endure it. The toilet was not the kind of window. There was only one ventilation fan, and it looked like it had been remodeled. It was estimated that it used to be a window, but it was later changed into this kind of ventilation fan. Did the people living here think that the ventilation fan could protect them from people? However, even if it could protect them from people, it couldn't protect them from cats. Zheng Tan jumped up and squeezed through the gaps between the fan blades. This was not the first time he had done something like squeezing through the ventilation fan, so he was very familiar with it. However, the fan blades were very dirty, and Zheng Tan's body was covered in a layer of dust. Looking inside the toilet, it was indeed very messy. Some of the tiles on the floor were already bald, and there were also some unknown yellow marks, which made Zheng Tan, who was a little bit of a clean freak, pull its ears unhappily. Forget it, I'll bear with it for now. After shaking off the dust on his body, Zheng Tan walked to the bathroom door. The toilet door was only half closed. Zheng Tan listened to the movements outside the toilet. There were 3 people chatting, but the toilet was too smelly. Zheng Tan felt uncomfortable staying here. He looked around and saw that there was no one outside the toilet door, so he walked out quietly. There was a staircase between the toilet and the living room. Behind the staircase was a pile of junk. Zheng Tan was hiding behind the staircase. He was already dark, and the staircase was not well lit. It was full of junk. Even if someone walked by, it would not be easy to find. From here, he could not see the people in the living room. Zheng Tan could only listen to the sounds. There was a strong smell of smoke in the surroundings. The living room was filled with smoke. Listening to the sounds, Zheng Tan knew that one of them was Snakehead. However, from their conversation and tone, he could guess that Snakehead and the others were not in a good mood. The reason for their mood was that recently, someone had reported a group of people who were selling human organs. This had implicated Snakehead and the others. Although Snakehead had nothing to do with that group of people, the commotion this time was a little too much. It had hindered some of Snakehead and the others' transactions. Organ trafficking. These people were actually in the organ trafficking business. Zheng Tan was shocked. No wonder he felt that Snakehead and the others had a strange look in their eyes. From the 3 people's conversation, Zheng Tan could deduce some things. Snakehead and the others were donor intermediaries. They would purchase the kidneys of people who met the buyer's blood type through some channels. After receiving some orders, they would contact the donor and promise a certain amount of money. After arranging for the donor to do a physical examination and match, they would prepare for the operation. Whether or not they had money was one thing. Even if they had money, whether or not they could find a matching organ in time was another big problem. Therefore, more and more people were contacting intermediaries like Snakehead. As long as they could get a matching organ, they did not care how many tricks and dirty deals there were. Zheng Tan had heard of people who sold organs. He had even seen people who sold their livers and kidneys on the news. Listening to the way Smuggler Head and the others spoke and used some sort of slang, Zheng Tan felt that this group of people would most likely use some kind of forceful method for money. This time, what Snakehead and the others were worried about was that a certain organ trafficking gang had cheated the donor of a sum of money. They had even cut a little more during the resection operation. After the donor had found out, he had started to make a fuss. No one had expected him to be so daring. Not only had he attracted the police, he had also attracted a lot of media. Therefore, to Snakehead and the others, the situation had become even more tense. Later on, they also talked about Little Geo. They were not looking for Little Geo for organs, but for a certain order they had accepted. Someone had offered 2 million to find 5 people with ABRH-negative blood types. It would be best if they were children. When the time came, they would buy them back and raise them to set up a private blood bank. Last year's blood contamination accident had made this buyer worried. In comparison, he believed in the blood he had raised more. At least it was safe. They did not lack the money anyway. 5 people for 2 million. Even if they could only find one that met the conditions, they could get 400,000. This was very tempting to Snakehead and the others. However, the buyer had raised a lot of requirements. In the end, he even added that the blood type must be completely compatible and absolutely healthy. Otherwise, the buyer would not buy. These days, many people only had one child at home. They treasured it a lot. They could not even bear to donate their child's blood, much less sell it. Therefore, Snakehead and the others went to some towns and villages, or even more remote places to search. There were more families with several children there. After completing a few organ transactions in Chuhua City, they went to the surrounding counties and cities. Through some channels and connections, after a week of searching, the only one that barely met the conditions was little Gio. As for little Gio's two sisters who had not been sold, one's blood type was not completely compatible, and the other's body was a little sick. Their only younger brother would definitely not be sold. Therefore, they could only choose little Gio. And little Gio's shortcomings were that this child was too skinny. His appearance was not good. Therefore, these people had originally planned to raise little Gio well for a period of time. When his appearance was better, they would send him to the buyer. Say, do you guys think we should develop the blood business in the future? Snakehead asked. In the past, they had also done things like human trafficking. However, later on, a nationwide arrest operation made them stop for a period of time. Later on, they heard that there was money to be made from selling organs, so they started this business. And this time, the order they received made them realize that there were quite a few business opportunities in it. Taking advantage of the fact that more people had not paid attention to these aspects and that the blood donation center did not have much rare blood type blood in reserve, they could make a few more profits. Even if the price was far less than this order, they could still make a few more profits. They would not complain about having more money. Zheng Tan was listening to these people's conversation from behind the stairs. He was so angry that he wanted to kick something. However, he was eavesdropping right now, so he could not make any noise. He could only suppress his anger. If little Gio was really sold by these people, even if he did not have to worry about food and drink, once he lost his freedom, he would have to draw blood regularly. He would become a human-shaped blood bag. Who knew if this would affect his lifespan? As they chatted, they received a phone call. It was probably someone informing them of the development of the situation. Just in case, let's leave early. We'll leave today. Snakehead made a prompt decision. Don't forget whose territory we're in. They know that we've been warned once. If we still dare to do business here, yes, Snakehead is right. We'll leave tonight. I'll go get a car, another person said. Then I'll go to the clinic to change my medicine first. I'll also buy some food on the way. Snakehead extinguished his cigarette in the ashtray. He stood up and took a deep breath. He said to the person who went out to get a car, "Be careful. I keep having a bad feeling." The person who walked to the door glared at him. "You should take care of yourself. Don't get bitten by a dog again. If your arm gets bitten like that again, it'll probably be crippled." Snakehead frowned. Talking about dogs annoyed him. Furthermore, he did not like things that were out of his control. The two encounters with evil had always been a thorn in Snakehead's heart, but he had never been able to find a convincing explanation. "Sickle, you keep an eye on it," Snakehead said to the person who had just returned. "I know. What can that kid do? The surroundings are all tightly sealed. No one knows that we're here," Sickle said. "I'll take a shower and relax. I'm so tired from running around all day." Today, there was someone at the hospital who almost ruined everything. Because the donor side was also willing, they did not want to be discovered. When they saw that there was a commotion at the hospital, they were afraid. During the examination, the doctor asked a few questions. That person was too nervous. Sickle told him the correct answers in a stuttering manner. Fortunately, the doctor did not look into it in detail. Thinking about it now, Sickle felt angry. After Snakehead and that person left, the person nicknamed Sickle prepared to take a shower and relax. Then he would sleep. He still had to drive through the night. Zheng Tan hid behind the stairs and watched as Sickle walked to the kitchen. The kitchen had been converted into a bathroom. No wonder he could not find the kitchen outside. There was no smoke or smoke from the windows. They were all sealed up. After that person went in, Zheng Tan looked around the floor. He did not see any room that could be locked up, so he ran upstairs. There were 3 rooms on the second floor. 2 of them were open. Zheng Tan sniffed at the door of the tightly shut room. The girl should be locked inside. He tried to break the lock. There was no reaction. It was locked. Those people would not let little Nine move around freely. The crack under the door was too small. Even a cat's paw could not reach in. Zheng Tan could not greet the person inside even if he wanted to. Moreover, the door looked very sturdy. With Zheng Tan's ability, he would not be able to kick it open even if he broke his leg. If only Air Mao was here. It would be able to pry it open in less than half a minute. Zheng Tan looked around the few rooms. He did not see it. Then he ran downstairs. These people should be carrying things like keys with them. When Sickle went in to take a shower, he left his jacket in the room. Zheng Tan searched Sickle's suit that looked worth some money and found a bunch of keys. Clearly, Sickle did not think that anyone would come in to steal the keys. If it was Snakehead, with his caution, he would probably take the keys directly into the bathroom. Suddenly thinking of something, he looked around. He did not see anything like a camera. Then Zheng Tan used his 2 front paws to hold the keys so that they would not make a sound when he ran. Then, Zheng Tan ran upstairs on his 2 legs. Chapter 211. Zheng Tan felt that it must have been because he had been in low spirits recently. Climbing the stairs made him feel tired. After using both legs to jump up the stairs, the muscles on his legs still hurt. It was probably because he used too much strength. Fortunately, there were no cramps, or else he would have rolled down the stairs. Without any time to rest, Zheng Tan ran to the door where little Nine was locked. She looked at the keyhole of the door lock and then looked at the key. Fortunately, there was only one key that seemed to match the keyhole. She didn't have to try a few keys, which saved her a lot of effort. He picked out the key and held it with 1 paw. The cat that had just jumped down the stairs exerted strength again and jumped up. The paw that wasn't holding the key hooked onto the doorknob. The key was more complicated than the wooden key of the Jiao family. Zheng Tan inserted it a few times before he could get it in. Inside the room, little Jiao was lying on the metal bed in the room. She looked at the light coming in through the window in a daze. The windows were sealed with anti-theft nets, and the windows were also sealed. It was impossible to open them. Even if she shouted for help, the people outside the house might not be able to hear her. Instead, it would attract the people outside the house. Little Jiao had seen many people in the village. She could feel the dangerous aura coming from them. So she had been very obedient all the way here. When she first arrived, these people took a tube of blood from her arm. It seemed like they were sending it to the buyer to check the goods. These days, every time they came in, they would send food. They were afraid that she would starve and lose weight. Sometimes, little Jiao felt like she was a pig. Once she was fat, they would sell her for a good price. Although she was only in the 1st grade and didn't know much about books, she wasn't as naive as the other children in the village. Her hearing was actually better than many of the other children in the village. Perhaps it was because she often went out to find food. So, even though there was a door between them, she could vaguely hear some of the things they said. She didn't know anything about blood types. She only knew that she was going to be sold because of it. Every time she woke up, little Jiao would think of the house in the village. The sisters were distant and indifferent, the parents had different attitudes towards their children, and coupled with her own personality, it created an accumulation of contradictions. But even so, even if she was often beaten until she was covered in wounds, even if the family didn't even let her sleep on a proper bed, little Nine would still go home. Kinship was a very strange thing. But this time, the conflict had intensified. Little Nine's previous hope had completely vanished. There was an old lady in the village who had once told her that people must have faith in order to support themselves through difficult times. Little Nine didn't think so in the past, but now that she was locked up in this 10-square-meter room, she wished she had faith. However, what exactly was faith? She was still very vague about the concept of this word. Little Nine looked around and her gaze landed on the bag of sweets on the table. This was a request she made to those people after she was locked up here. Seeing that she was still quite cooperative, or perhaps it was to fill in a sweet date with a stick, One of them went out to buy a bag of candy and threw it to her. However, little Nine felt that this candy was not as delicious as the milk candy she ate a few days ago. Looking at the production date on the bag, it was more than a year ago. It must be the cheap goods that the child in the village who often wore beautiful dresses and showed off everywhere was talking about. Little Nine counted his own wishes with his fingers. If he could get out, he would work hard to earn money to buy candy. If he could get out, he would earn a lot of money to buy his own house. And raising a cat was not bad either. If he could get out, he would never go home again. Just as she was thinking about what other wishes she had, little Nine heard the door lock ring. She thought that those people had come and didn't get up. After the door lock rang, there was no more movement. However, little Nine didn't care. After a while, the door lock started to ring again. This time, it was the sound of the key opening the door. Creak. The subtle sound of the door opening was very clear in the quiet room. Little Nine frowned and turned to look at the door, ready to see what these people were up to. At the door, there was no one. As if sensing something, he looked down. A black cat. Little Nine. Seeing the black cat's first reaction, little Nine rubbed her eyes, her face full of disbelief. She really didn't expect to see this cat at this time. Why was it here? Where were those people? Why did it have a key? How did it open the door? However, Zheng Tan didn't wait for little Nine to think too much. He saw little Nine in the room and this girl didn't seem to have any problems, so he ran out. After running for 2 steps, he turned back to look at little Nine, indicating that she should leave quickly. She didn't have time to think too much and didn't care about taking the key from the door. Little Nine quickly followed. She just wanted to leave this place immediately. Moreover, she didn't know why, but she felt that if she followed this cat, she would definitely be safe. She didn't even think about the possibility that this black cat in front of her was in cahoots with those people. Zheng Tan went downstairs. When he reached the staircase, he looked around vigilantly, his ears twitching. That person called Sickle was still bathing inside, but he should be done soon. Snakehead and the other person hadn't come back either. He didn't hear any other movements on the first floor. Seeing the black cat's vigilant look, little Nine followed behind and went downstairs quietly. When she was in the village, she would sometimes eavesdrop in the corners for fun. Moreover, she was still wearing the pair of cloth shoes that she wore in the village, so she wasn't used to it. Therefore, it wasn't difficult for little Nine to move quietly and quickly. Zheng Tan looked around this floor. If they wanted to leave, they could only go through the main door. The main door was a thick security door. When little Nine opened it, it made a ka-ka-ka sound. Hearing this sound, Zheng Tan quickly rushed out. Little Nine quickly closed the door and ran out with Zheng Tan. Sickle, who was bathing, heard movement at the main door and shouted a few words. He thought that Snakehead or the other person had come back, but after waiting for a few seconds, he didn't hear any movement outside. He suddenly had a bad feeling. He opened the door and looked outside. He shouted a few more times, but there was still no response. He didn't bother to wipe off the water on his body. Sickle ran and looked around a few rooms. At the same time, he put on his clothes. When he ran upstairs to look, he found that the door to little Nine's room was open, and his key was in the door lock. On the other side, Zheng Tan and little Nine hadn't gone far when they bumped into Snakehead, who had just come back from buying things. So unlucky. Zheng Tan cursed in his heart. Snakehead didn't notice Zheng Tan. All his attention was on little Nine. Once he saw little Nine, Snakehead knew that something had happened to Sickle. He threw the big bag of things on the ground and immediately chased after them. Previously, Zheng Tan was prepared to bring little Nine back to Tsinghua University. When they returned to their own territory, they would have helped. But now, Zheng Tan could only bring little Nine in another direction. But if they went from here, where could they hide? Could they take the long way back to Tsinghua University? They would probably be caught before that. It was better to find a place to hide. No matter what, they had to run first. They met some pedestrians on the way, but little Nine didn't call for help. She didn't know if it would be useful. She didn't know if anyone would help. Also, she was afraid of attracting more enemies. Find a random passerby? She didn't know if those passersby would wallow in the mire with those people. She was now in an unfamiliar environment. She was very cautious of her surroundings. She didn't trust the strangers around her at all. Also, the cat in front didn't stop. She just had to follow closely. Zheng Tan decided to bring Little Nine to the streets first. When there were more people, whether Little Nine called for help or found a suitable place to hide, the success rate would be very high. Little Nine was still young after all. Her physical strength couldn't compare to Snakehead's. Snakehead was already quickly closing the distance. If it wasn't for a person pushing a fruit stall passing by and blocking Snakehead, Snakehead would probably have caught Little Nine. But if that happened, Zheng Tan would definitely jump up and kick Snakehead without hesitation. Zheng Tan slowed down. If Little Nine, who was running behind her, left her too far behind, she would not be able to react quickly if she was caught by the Snakehead. When he looked back, Zheng Tan noticed that Sickle behind Snakehead was also chasing after them. Although Sickle wasn't as cautious as Snakehead sometimes, his movements were definitely fast enough. While he slowed down and ran to wait for Little Nine to catch up, Zheng Tan also paid attention to the surrounding situation, looking for places to hide. After running past a narrow alley, Zheng Tan suddenly came to an abrupt stop. She quickly retreated, looked into the alley, and then ran in. It was that blind old man. Just now, he had only taken a quick glance and was quite far away. Zheng Tan had only been suspicious. Now it seemed that it really was him. Zheng Tan really wanted to shout out loud at this moment. "Blind man, I really King love you to death." Zheng Tan knew that Elder Kuen's place was quite a distance from here. Also, when he followed Elder Kuen in the past, this old man didn't pass by here. But no matter what, seeing this old man, Zheng Tan was confident that he could escape. Yi Hao and the others had said before that this blind old man actually had people following him. It was just that no one usually noticed. Also, the people who followed this old man to protect him were all experts. To be called experts by Yi Hao and Celestine, they were definitely not ordinary people. They should be more than enough to deal with Snakehead and Sickle, right? To Little Nine, at this time, she should run towards a crowded place. There was a shopping mall in front, and there were many people there. She could just run inside and find a place to hide. But the black cat in front of her walked towards that small alley. However, although she was confused, Little Nine still ran in with Zheng Tan. To Elder Kuen, today had not been a happy day. This afternoon, there were people quarreling at the bridge, and there were even people who wanted to commit suicide. One of them shouted that he wanted to jump off the bridge, which attracted a lot of onlookers. It seriously affected Elder Kuen's mood to play the eru. Thus, the old man packed up his things and left. On a whim, the old man wandered around the area for a while before taking a shortcut back. The surroundings were much quieter, but there were too many crisscrossing narrow paths. If a taxi drove in from one of the paths, people couldn't walk on it. They had to wait for the car to leave before they could continue walking. On the other hand, taxis couldn't enter the paths, so there were basically no cars in this area. Even though there were many paths and there were steps on the road, making people who didn't have a strong sense of direction feel dizzy here, it wasn't difficult for Elder Kuen. He would walk here a few times every month. As he walked, Elder Kuen's ears twitched and he stopped in his tracks. He turned around. The moment he turned around, Zheng Tan rushed to Elder Kuen's side. Chapter 212. Seeing the girl run into the narrow alley, Snakehead was delighted. He was afraid that the girl would run to a crowded place or start shouting on the streets. He didn't expect her to run into an alley. Didn't she know that this kind of alley was even more dangerous? Usually, there were many people doing shady deals in the alley. Fights often happened, and there were even cases of people dying. The people who lived there mostly followed the principle of self-preservation. Even at night, when they heard the words, "catch a thief," they would close their doors and not come out. Who would care about what you were doing there? Little Nine was prepared to continue running, but she realized that Zheng Tan had stopped beside the old man and was panting. However, he didn't seem to be in a hurry. Looking at the old man again, she remembered that only blind people would use things like bamboo poles or sticks to explore the way. And this old man was only blind. How could he be of help? Going around the old man, Little Nine ran a few steps. Seeing that Zheng Tan didn't follow her, but was instead standing beside the old man, she hesitated for a moment. And at this moment, Snakehead and Sickle had already entered the alley and caught up. Stopping, Little Nine called out to Zheng Tan in a low voice, indicating for him to run quickly and not implicate others. Furthermore, this was a blind old man. Snakehead and the rest didn't look like good people. If the blind old man went up against them, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. Seeing Little Nine's anxious look, Zheng Tan didn't know how to express his thoughts. After thinking for a moment, he raised his claws and hooked onto Elder Kuen's trousers. He wanted to hug his thigh, but in the end, it was unknown whether it was because the material of Elder Kuen's trousers was too bad, or because Zheng Tan's claws were too sharp, but he used too much strength and directly cut the trousers. Elder Kuen and Little Nine. Hearing that Snakehead and the rest were approaching, Zheng Tan gave up on hugging his thigh and hid behind Elder Kuen. He only poked his head out to look in Snakehead's direction. Since Elder Kuen had already stopped, it meant that he was willing to help. Otherwise, this old man would continue walking and wouldn't care about what was happening around him. Snakehead's face was a little twisted. It was unknown whether it was because he was angry or because he was tired from running over. In short, he looked a little angry, as if he wanted to eat someone. When Little Nine saw Snakehead in this state, she had the urge to break into a run. But when she saw that black cat again, she had a very strange feeling. It seemed that it was better to stay here. Zheng Tan's gaze was not entirely focused on Snakehead and Sickle, who had followed closely into the alley. Instead, it was focused on the intersection. At the same time, he pricked up his ears and paid attention to the direction behind him. At the intersection, after Sickle came in, another person came in. That person did not seem to have anything special about him. He really looked like a passerby, but Sickle did not notice that there was someone behind him. Snakehead had only heard of Lord Kuen's name but had never seen him before. Therefore, even if they were to meet face to face, he wouldn't be able to match the old man in front of him with the awesome Lord Kuen. Although he had his doubts for a moment, looking at the equipment on the old man in front of him, he really couldn't imagine how this blind man in front of him could be a threat. Moreover, Snakehead was currently in a rage. After his doubts, he didn't think too much. What he wanted the most now was to catch Little Nine. This was 400,000 yuan. Just a little more and this 400,000 yuan would have escaped. Snakehead angrily ran over and looked in Little Nine's direction. Run, run again. Let's see where you can hide. Then he roared at Lord Kuen. Scram, old thing. Just as he reached out to grab the old man's collar and fling him to the side, Snakehead's arm that wasn't bitten by the dog was bent into a twisted angle in the next moment. He didn't even have time to scream before he fainted. The scythe behind Snakehead had been taken down a few seconds before Snakehead's misfortune. The sound of the entire process could not be compared to the noise coming from outside the alley, and Snakehead did not even notice the movement behind him. Little Nine stood about 5 meters behind Lord Kuen. She looked in Snakehead's direction. She had seen everything that had happened very clearly. From the moment that person approached Sickle to when Snakehead fainted, the entire process was too short. She didn't even have time to catch her breath. Just as Little Nine was puzzled, a person approached from behind her. He didn't pay attention to her and just walked past her. Only then did she focus her attention on the person who had just walked past. This person still looked very ordinary. There wasn't anything special about him at first glance. At least, Little Nine couldn't tell that this person was different from the people she had seen on the streets before. She saw that person quickly walk over to that side. Then he and the person who had knocked Snakehead unconscious each dragged one person as if they were supporting a drunk person and left the alley. Some of the residents who lived in the surrounding area had also seen the situation. Although they didn't see it clearly, they could roughly guess that there was some kind of conflict. Adhering to the principle of self-preservation and not minding other people's business, they pretended that they hadn't seen it. After all, this kind of thing happened often. Now they were numb to it. Zheng Tan let out a sigh of relief. As expected, Lord Kuen had people around him. After taking care of Snakehead and those two fellows, Little Nine was temporarily safe. Lord Kuen slowly turned around and continued walking along the original path. When he passed by Little Nine nervously swallowed her saliva. She felt her entire body stiffen. Even a fool now knew that this old man wasn't ordinary. No wonder that black cat wasn't worried at all when it hid behind him. However, they were strangers after all. Moreover, these people didn't look like kind people. Little Nine didn't know if these people would sell her out like Snakehead and the others. "Come here," Lord Kuan said when he passed by Little Nine. Little Nine was stunned. She looked to the side and then looked at Lord Kuan. She trembled a little and said, "Me?" Lord Kuan didn't reply and continued walking forward. Zheng Tan was puzzled. What did Lord Kuan want to do? However, since Lord Kuan had already spoken, Little Nine had to follow even if she didn't want to. Zheng Tan accompanied Little Nine and followed Lord Kuan around this area. If it was Zheng Tan alone, he would get lost after walking for a while. The only way was to jump onto a roof to find the direction. He didn't expect Lord Kuan, who was blind, to be so familiar with this place. He didn't even stop and kept walking at a constant speed. When Lord Kuan returned to his room, there was already a document placed on his table. It was written in Braille. Zheng Tan didn't understand it. He only saw Lord Kuan flipping through it and stroking it with his fingers. He couldn't see anything from Lord Kuan's face and didn't know what this old man was feeling. However, based on intuition, Zheng Tan felt that this old man didn't have too many emotional fluctuations. He wouldn't be angry or happy. It was a good thing that he didn't have any emotional fluctuations. Little Nine was arranged to sit on a wooden chair not far away. Although she drank tea and tried her best to act natural, it was obvious that her skills weren't enough. A person walked in. Zheng Tan had seen this person the last time he was here. After that person came in, he looked at Lord Kuan. Seeing that Lord Kuan didn't instruct anyone to stay away, he directly opened his mouth and said what he had found out about Snakehead and the others. It was much more detailed than what Zheng Tan knew. Little Nine also sat on the chair and listened attentively, especially the part about herself. When she heard that Snakehead and the others had committed many crimes and even killed people, her hands trembled. She now felt that she was lucky to be able to escape from those people. Looking at the black cat lying on the table next to the vase, Little Nine thought, "This cat really does bring luck." Previously, because he heard some rumors, Brother Qing asked his subordinates to warn them not to commit crimes here. "I didn't expect them to be so daring." The person continued to speak. From this person's words, Zheng Tan also knew that other than Snakehead and Sickle, the person who went to get the car was also found. The criminal law didn't directly target the crime of human organ trafficking. Moreover, most of the donors were willing, so it wasn't easy to deal with. Even if Snakehead and the others were caught by the police, the act of buying human organs and then reselling them was, in essence, a business operation. Human organs were prohibited in the country, so this kind of business operation was considered an illegal business operation. However, Snakehead and the others had other things to do. This was serious. Any one of these things could be heavily punished. He just didn't know how Elder Kuan would deal with Snakehead and the others. No matter what, Zheng Tan heard that person's tone, Snakehead and the others wouldn't have a good ending. Elder Kuan didn't say anything. He slightly raised his hand and the person left. Elder Kuan told Little Nine to stay here and told Zheng Tan to go home. Zheng Tan looked at the pendulum clock. It was indeed not early, but he was worried about Little Nine. Just as he was hesitating, he heard Elder Kuan say, "You can come here tomorrow to see her." Seeing Little Nine nod, Zheng Tan left. With Elder Kuan's status, he wouldn't make things difficult for Little Nine, right? When Elder Kuan and Celestine were talking about cooperation, Zheng Tan had heard a little. The old man shouldn't be lacking in a few 100,000 yuan. The next day, Zheng Tan ran out after sending little Pomelo. When he passed by the overpass, he took a look. The old man was still sitting there playing the arrow. Zheng Tan ran up to him and walked around twice. The old man only cared about playing the arrow and didn't have any other reaction. After leaving the overpass, Zheng Tan followed the path that Elder Kuan took him the first time and found Elder Kuan's residence. He raised his paw and knocked on the door. The door quickly opened. It was the same person who opened the door last time. Seeing Zheng Tan, the person didn't seem surprised at all. When Zheng Tan saw Little Nine, the girl was reading a book. Zheng Tan looked at it. It was a first-grade textbook. The textbook had been used by someone else and there were some crooked words on it. Seeing Zheng Tan come over, little Nine immediately put down the textbook. She looked very happy. Her eyes were filled with hope and there was no depression. Little Nine told him about her choice and Elder Kuen's arrangements for her. Elder Kuen gave her a few choices. She didn't choose to go home or to the orphanage. Elder Kuen asked her to follow someone first. She would leave with that person this afternoon. However, she would stay in Chuhua City and wouldn't run to other areas. From Little Nine's words, this girl actually wanted to follow Elder Kuen. She had a sense of admiration for Elder Kuen. However, to put it bluntly, she didn't have the qualifications. Not everyone could follow Elder Kuen. Ability was one thing. It hadn't even been a day since they met. Elder Kuen didn't know Little Nine well and he didn't lack people. He wouldn't make a decision so easily. Moreover, Elder Kuen didn't specialize in charity. He wouldn't help you just because you were pitiful. Zheng Tan felt that Elder Kuen had other plans. Unfortunately, Zheng Tan couldn't get an answer from Elder Kuen. From Elder Kuen's attitude today, Zheng Tan didn't think that Elder Kuen didn't notice his existence. Although he didn't quite understand Elder Kuen's plan, at least for now, Little Nine was safe. She hadn't been sold or sent to a bad place. She still had a chance to receive an education. Even if she didn't want to study, she still had to go to primary and middle school. Zheng Tan raised his hand to look at Little Nine. This girl's eyes had a glow that he hadn't seen before. Was it because she could study or because of something else? Zheng Tan couldn't see clearly. Little Nine had made her own choice. He didn't know if it was an immature idea or after careful consideration. With such a young child, even if she made up her mind, how long could she last? When she left, Little Nine said that she would look for Zheng Tan if she had the chance. Zheng Tan didn't take it to heart. What Little Nine could do was still up to Elder Kuen. Thinking about this, Zheng Tan didn't pay attention to his surroundings when he returned to the eastern courtyard. When he was called, he realized that Fang Xiaokong, who he hadn't seen in a long time, was here. "I'm not here to look for you today," Fang Xiaokong said. Zheng Tan looked at the security guard. Mao was already waiting there. Why was Fang Xiaokong here? Zheng Tan followed them to the third floor. "Third uncle, have some tea first." Mao served the tea obsequiously. Fang Xiaokong took the tea and didn't say much. He looked in the direction of the cat nests. "Are the two cats asleep?" "Yes, they've been messing around all morning. They've been sleeping in the afternoon until now." Before Mao finished speaking, Zheng Tan saw two cat heads poke out from the two cat nests. They looked at Fang Xiaokong warily. "Yo, they're really alert." Fang Xiaokong was obviously very satisfied. Chapter 213. Fang Xiaokong took some time out today to visit the kittens. In fact, he had heard about Mao's cats giving birth a month ago. Mao's brother, Wang Bin, had also mentioned this to Fang Xiaokong when they were chatting. At that time, Fang Xiaokong did not take it seriously. Later, when Fang Xiaokong's family in Beijing called, Fang Xiaokong found out that his daughter had always wanted to raise a cat, but had not found a suitable one. What was suitable? The family did not quite understand Fang Mingming's requirements for cats. After all, for many people, cats were cats. If it was purely about raising pets, those who had the means and status would be more inclined towards some precious breeds, but Fang Mingming always looked down on them. The family thought that the child was just thinking about raising a cat on a whim, but when it came to choosing, she was hesitant. After knowing this, Third Master Fang, who had been busy with his career and did not have much time to spend with his wife and children, inevitably felt a little guilty about his children and decided to come and take a look. Zheng Tan watched Fang Xiaokong take out a 10-centimeter tall device from the bag he was carrying. There was a camera on the front. After adjusting it, Fang Xiaokong put the device aside and teased the two kittens with some cat toys that Mao handed over. However, what interested Fang Xiaokong was that when he was teasing the two kittens, they were vigilant at first, then slowly walked out of the nest and approached Fang Xiaokong. Then, they moved their paws perfunctorily, squatted one step away from Fang Xiaokong, and stopped moving. However, as long as Mao came over with the same cat toys, the two kittens would jump left and right as if they were possessed by a lunatic, playing very excitedly. They were still wary of Fang Xiaokong, a stranger. Are they trying to see who it is? Fang Xiaokong was not annoyed. He dragged a small stool and sat by the side, watching Mao tease the cats while carefully observing the two kittens. Jing Tan also squatted by the side and watched. He didn't expect these two kittens to have such personalities. It made sense. After inheriting the special genes of the Monsignor, it would not be the kind of cat that only had a head but not a brain. Its IQ should be higher than the average cat's. At noon, Jing Tan picked up little Pomelo and went to Jiao Wei's restaurant for lunch. When he came back, he found that Fang Xiaokong was still there. Who knew which one he had chosen, or was he going to take both? Curious, Jing Tan pushed open the half-closed door and walked in. In the living room, Fang Xiaokong was fiddling with the small machine. He then chose a place and adjusted the angle, pointing the camera at the two kittens while talking to someone on the phone. Okay, you can see it this time, right? Okay, then take a good look. Daddy will bring back whichever one you like this weekend. Two won't do. These two will fight when they are together. Have you heard that two tigers cannot live on the same mountain? Hey, that's the situation in other people's homes. Your brother Mao's situation is special. You see, these two cats are different from other cats, right? While Fang Xiaokong was talking nonsense, Jing Tan didn't think that Fang Xiaokong knew the difference between the two cats. He guessed that Fang Xiaokong was purely trying to dissuade Fang Mengmeng from raising two cats at the same time. Mao was trying to play with the two cats. Then, Fang Mengmeng, who was in Beijing, would observe the two kittens through the video sent over here and decide which one to raise. Some people thought that raising a cat depended on fate. Perhaps Fang Mengmeng was such a person. She liked the two cats at first sight. Although it was just a video, it felt different. She had seen several cats in the past few days, and none of them could compare to these two. Otherwise, she wouldn't have proposed the decision to raise both. Fang Xiaokong was overjoyed when he heard that his daughter liked it. As a father, he had finally found something to please his daughter. However, he only wanted to take one of them away. Judging from their temperament, one was enough to cause trouble. Two of them would definitely cause a ruckus. It was a joke for children to take care of cats, but if Fang Mengmeng couldn't take care of them all, there were others to help. Pleasing his daughter was one of the reasons. Fang Xiaokong mainly wanted to cultivate Fang Mengmeng's sense of responsibility. Fang Xiaokong actually didn't have much expectation for Demi. After all, there were very few cats like the black cat next to him, and relatively few were smart. How is it? Have you thought about it? Which one do you want? Fang Xiaokong asked. Fang Mengmeng still couldn't decide. She felt that both of them were good. In order to let Fang Mengmeng observe the two cats better, Fang Xiaokong controlled the small machine to move towards the cat's nest. At the same time, he wanted to see the reactions of the two cats. After waiting for half an hour, Fang Mengmeng still couldn't make a decision. Fang Xiaokong thought for a while and asked, Mao, these two cats are a male and a female, right? Yes, Demi is female and Xiaomi is male, Mao answered. No matter which 1/3 Master Fang took, it was the same to him. I see. Fang Mengmeng thought of something and said, I want a little female cat. Little female cat? Then I'll choose Demi. Which one is Demi? Fang Mengmeng asked. That's Sanhua. Mao pointed at Demi, who was holding a stuffed toy and chewing on it. Sanhua, it's the same as Dad. Just right, I'll choose Demi. Fang Mengmeng felt it was a pity that Xiaomi was a male cat. Otherwise, she would have wanted to persuade her dad to raise two more. After choosing, Fang Mengmeng was urged by her mother to take a nap. Only then did she leave reluctantly. Fang Xiaokong took out a pet bag and asked Mao, if I just take it away like this, will it bite me? Even if it doesn't bite, it will scratch, right? It's okay, it's still a kitten. It doesn't have much strength, Mao said casually. Fang Xiaokong looked at the sofa in the living room that had been scratched. Mao didn't say anything. These two kittens really couldn't be compared to the usual kittens. Each one was harder to deal with than the last. Actually, Mao could tell that these two kittens didn't inherit much of Black Rice's personality after they learned how to crawl and walk. They were probably similar to their father and would be difficult to please when they grew up. Fang Xiaokong stayed with Mao for a while. He planned to spend more time with Demi and get to know it better. After we take it away, will it cause a ruckus for a while? Fang Xiaokong asked. Kittens are all like that. It'll be fine in a few days. Even so, Mao was still reluctant when he put Demi into the pet bag. After all, he had been busy preparing the kittens before they were born. When they were born and he saw them grow so big, it was impossible to say that he didn't have any emotions. After Demi was taken away by Fang Xiaokong, Demi looked around and cried for a while. Mao was in a dilemma. He wondered if he should leave Demi behind. Seeing Demi like that made him feel depressed. However, after lunch in the afternoon, when Mao went to the toilet to pee, he found that Demi's nest had been dragged to the side of the sofa. There were scratches and bite marks on it. Demi usually didn't bite its nest. He looked at Demi again. Demi was sleeping in its nest. Mao called it twice, but it only made some noises from its nose. Demi then changed its position and continued sleeping. Mao scratched his head. As expected, he was thinking too much. He looked at Black Rice, who was sleeping in the bedroom. After Demi left, it only looked around and cried for a while before stopping. It continued sleeping and its appetite for dinner didn't change. Mao didn't know if other people's cats were like this. At least, it was like this in his house. However, Demi was sent away. What about Demi? Who should he give it to? Qin Tao said that Tang Kai wanted to raise it. Unfortunately, everyone knew that she wouldn't be able to raise it for long. She didn't dare to take the risk now. It was better not to harm Demi. The next day, Zheng Tan was secretly playing online at home when he heard a knock on the door. Zheng Tan was shocked. He quickly turned off the computer and moved the mouse back to its original position. He also erased any suspicious traces. When Zheng Tan turned off the computer, he heard a voice outside the door. Black Charcoal, are you home? It was Xiaolu. What was Xiaolu doing here at this time? It wasn't the weekend. Moreover, Xiaolu had graduated a long time ago. Every time she came over, it was on weekends or holidays. Most of the time, she didn't have time. He had to ask for her help to send things over. How did Xiaolu have time to come over today? Zheng Tan was puzzled. He walked quickly to the door and opened it. Xiaolu was at the door wearing a business suit. Looking at her formal attire, she probably came directly from the company. As usual, Xiaolu would bring a lot of food and cosmetics for Jiaoma every time she came over. To her, these things were really nothing. After placing the items on the sofa, Xiaolu grabbed a disposable paper cup and filled it with water from the water dispenser. After catching his breath, he told Zheng Tan, I've already sent a message to your mother. I'll leave the items here for now. However, I have another purpose for coming today. Xiaolu carried her bag and walked to the door. Black Charcoal, let's go and see Mao's kittens. She came for the kittens too? Zheng Tan followed Xiaolu to the third floor. Xiaolu should have already contacted Mao. When Mao opened the door, it didn't show any surprise. It was still in a daze and probably didn't sleep well. It probably stayed up late playing games last night. Hey, Xiaomi is sleeping in the nest. You can go and see for yourself. But be careful. Although this guy is still young, he has a bad temper. Mao pointed at Xiaomi's nest. Xiaomi ignored Xiaolu at first, just like how it treated Fang Xiaokong yesterday. However, there was some curiosity in its eyes. Perhaps to it, the cat teaser was not as interesting as the person in front of it. After looking for a while, Xiaomi slowly yawned and walked back to the nest to continue sleeping. Unfortunately, it was dragged out by Mao. After putting Xiaomi into the pet bag, Mao thought for a while and put Xiaomi's nest in a bag and passed it to Xiaolu. At the beginning, let it sleep in its own nest. It probably won't be able to adapt to an unfamiliar environment. Third uncle said that he made a lot of noise last night. In the afternoon, he will send someone to take away some of Xiaomi's things. He said that this will reduce its anxiety. Otherwise, it will continue to make noise tonight. Xiaolu nodded. Other than Xiaomi's nest, he also took a few plush toys. Although these plush toys were already listed by Mao as items to be thrown away, Xiaolu decided to take a few back just in case. Chapter 214. After Demi and Demi left, Mao's life returned to its original carefree state. However, recently, Mao had been running around outside during the day. Black Rice was quite quiet. Zheng Tan didn't hear it barking. It had probably adapted to life without its cub. Zheng Tan had seen it once recently. Black Rice seemed to be in good spirits. After stretching, Jing Tan came down from the tall parasol tree. The afternoon was suitable for sleeping, but he couldn't sleep today. Jing Tan decided to go out for a walk. It had been a while since he went to the bridge. He was going to see the blind old man. The cars honked incessantly, but Jing Tan could still hear the sound of the eru. The old man should be in a good mood today. However, when Jing Tan walked to the bridge, he saw an unexpected acquaintance. In the shade under the bridge, Xiaojiu was leaning there, reading a book. When Jing Tan walked over, Xiaojiu just happened to look around. After seeing Jing Tan, Xiaojiu's eyes were filled with surprise. I have half a day off today, so I came over to try my luck and see if I can meet you. If I don't, I'll just sit here and read for half a day. Xiaojiu said happily. This place was close to Elder Kuan, so there must be Elder Kuan's people around. Xiaojiu wasn't worried about meeting other bad people. Xiaojiu carried a backpack on his back and looked very new. After putting the book in his backpack, Xiaojiu called Jing Tan to a quieter place and briefly explained the situation. I have a new life. The household register is under the name of the big sister who brought me here. My name is now Huangjiu. Xiaojiu said, Yellow wine? I'm still red wine. Jing Tan cursed in his heart. Xiaojiu took out a cup from his backpack and poured some water on the stone slab by the side of the flower bed. He dipped his finger in the water and then wrote his name on the ground. Probably because he hadn't practiced writing for a long time, his handwriting wasn't good, but Jing Tan could see clearly which two words it was. In the past, Little Nine was directly called Little Nine at home. Jing Tan wasn't too sure about the household registration, but he saw that Little Nine was quite satisfied with her new household registration and liked the name. After talking for a while, Xiaojiu told Jing Tan to wait here while she quickly ran into the nearest supermarket. 10 minutes later, Xiaojiu ran back with her bag. Luckily, it's not the weekend today, so there aren't many people around. The drawer over there is empty too. I went to a supermarket last Saturday, and there were so many people. Jing Tan felt that this girl had become a lot more talkative now. She liked to talk about every little thing. Perhaps to Little Nine, these were happy things that she wanted to share with others. Xiaojiu came to the side of the flower bed and sat down. She opened the zipper of her bag and took out a bag of candy. Here, help me bring this to your little master. I want to thank him for the candy he gave me. It's a pity that I didn't eat much of that bag of candy. What a waste. Xiaojiu handed the bag of candy to Jing Tan. The bag wasn't big and wasn't a challenge for Jing Tan. However, this bag wasn't wiped with paper. Under the influence of his little misophobia, Jing Tan hesitated. I have pocket money every month, but it's not much. This month I only have 10 yuan. I can only buy this. It can't compare to the candy your little master gave me. When I have money in the future, I'll treat you to better food. Xiaojiu looked at Jing Tan with anticipation. If Jing Tan didn't catch it, Xiaojiu would probably think that he was disgusted with the candy. Forget it. Jing Tan opened his mouth and caught the bag of candy. Only then did Little Nine smile and begin to speak again. I can't come every weekend. I'll be busier in the future and have to rush for classes. After all, I'm much older than the first graders. I can't be looked down upon by them. I haven't been to school for a long time. I've forgotten some of the pinyin and Chinese characters that I learned in the first grade. That sister said that she hopes that I can directly enter the third grade. I think so too. I can't be with those brats who are 2 or 3 years younger than me. How embarrassing would that be, right? After talking for a while, Xiaojiu had to leave. She had to go back and study. However, even if he didn't hear Xiaojiu say all this, Jing Tan could see that this girl's life was not bad recently. Her eyes didn't have too many worries that didn't belong to a child her age. This was a good sign. Seeing Jing Tan walk back with the bag of candy in his mouth, Xiaojiu worriedly added, "Don't lose it." So long-winded. Swinging his tail, Jing Tan still stopped and turned back to look at Xiaojiu helplessly. Seeing Jing Tan like this, Xiaojiu laughed and waved her hand. Carrying her bag, she ran in the opposite direction from Jing Tan. Probably because she was in a good mood, she jumped a few times as she ran. Jing Tan walked back with the bag of candy in his mouth. On the way back, he directly waited for little Pomelo at the entrance of Fu Elementary. Black charcoal, who bought this? Little Pomelo walked out of school and took the bag of candy. She looked at it and asked Jing Tan. She also looked around but didn't see anyone who could have sent the candy. Jing Tan couldn't answer right now. After returning home, when Little Pomelo was preparing to do her homework, Jing Tan pulled out Little Pomelo's drawing book. This was Little Pomelo's own drawing book. When she had nothing to do, she would draw in it for fun. It wasn't an art class exercise book. Jing Tan flipped through it and found a drawing that Little Pomelo had drawn during the summer vacation. The drawing was of Xiaojiao carrying a small bucket and a sickle. It's her. Little Pomelo was surprised. Why is she here? Jing Tan didn't know how to answer this question. On Friday night, Celestine came over with an invitation for his wedding during the National Day holiday. Although he had told Auntie Jiao about it before, Auntie Jiao had also said that there was no need to send another notice as it was too troublesome. However, in order to appear more formal, Wei Ling still specially sent an invitation card over. Jiaoma liked to talk about this topic. She chatted with Celestine for about 10 minutes. She didn't even say anything about Celestine taking Jing Tan out to play and possibly not coming home for the night. Jiaoma saw that Jing Tan's spirit had improved a lot. He had gotten rid of his previous depression, so she only gave Jing Tan a few words of advice. As long as he was in good spirits, she didn't ask for too much for the time being. At the door of the 3rd floor, Mao was already waiting. Walnut was also on his way to the night building. Today, they had a good gathering. The next time they got together would be at Celestine's wedding. Moreover, there would be some elders present, so they definitely wouldn't be so comfortable. On the way, Mao didn't stop talking. He was even more talkative than Celestine. From teasing Celestine to lamenting about raising a cat, he still hadn't finished talking by the time they arrived at the night building. Yi Hao was also at the night building today, but he wouldn't disturb Celestine and the other two. However, he had something to say to Jing Tan. Celestine went upstairs to the private room first, leaving Yi Hao to talk to Jing Tan. Exclusive private room? Jing Tan listened to Yi Hao's words and nodded to himself. Not bad. It seemed that Yi Hao still remembered this. When Jing Tan came to the night building, he didn't hear Celestine mention it. He thought that Yi Hao's promise of a private room had been left unsettled. He didn't expect that it would really be settled. Yi Hao still had things to do, so he couldn't stay here for long. He signaled Tiger Liang, the person in charge of the night building, to take Jing Tan to have a look. Although Tiger Liang didn't have much contact with Jing Tan, he knew some of the cat's legendary stories from the conversations between Leopard and Ranqi. Otherwise, his boss wouldn't have specially opened a private room for a cat, so he knew that he had to treat it seriously. Jing Tan followed Tiger Liang to the 3rd floor. The room that Yi Hao had arranged for Jing Tan was right next to Celestine's. Some time ago, Yi Hao had renovated some of the private rooms on the 3rd floor, and he had also arranged a private room for Jing Tan. Just like Celestine's door, this one also used a card, but it wasn't a card inserting type. Yi Hao had specially arranged for someone to install a card swiping device similar to the one in Tsinghua University's East Courtyard, but with much higher privacy and security. It was obvious that Yi Hao had put in a lot of effort. Jing Tan looked at the small round card in Tiger Liang's hand. It was similar to the cat tag he had in the East Courtyard. In other words, this was an imitation of Jing Tan's cat tag. This private room was a little smaller than Celestine's, but a lot of effort had been put into the renovation, especially the walls and ceiling. There were corridors for cats to crawl and walk on, and the corridors for cats hanging from the ceiling didn't look messy. Jing Tan walked up diagonally from the wooden planks on the wall and jumped onto the suspension bridge that led to the ceiling from a fork in the corridor. After playing around for a while, he felt that it wasn't bad. The patterns were basically cat paw prints, cat head portraits, and so on. There wasn't any other style. What made Jing Tan blush with shame were the scratching boards and the hanging plush toys. If Jing Tan was really a cat and not a cat with a human heart, he would definitely like these settings. For a real cat, this place was like a mini playground. In addition to these, there was also a karaoke set, which made Jing Tan feel very satisfied. He didn't know if Yi Hao and the others were thinking that if Jing Tan was depressed and wanted to howl in the future, there would be a special place for him to do so, instead of tormenting everyone's ears at Yi Hao's or Celestine's place. This place wasn't bad. In the future, he would bring his friends here to play. Jing Tan thought. But Jing Tan lay on the soft sofa and counted with his paws. It seemed that there weren't many people he could bring over. The sheriff and Huang wouldn't come, and Depang was always guarding his grandmother. Peanuts? To be decided. Monsignor? They weren't familiar, and Monsignor wouldn't care about it. It had come here many times when it was with Yi Hao, but now that it was with Master Tang VII, it probably didn't care about this kind of place anymore. It seemed that it still didn't have enough friends. Tiger Liang had been observing the black cat in the room the whole time. He secretly sighed. It was indeed a very special cat. No wonder Ranchi always wore a pendant to ward off evil spirits. After looking around the room for a while, Zheng Tan went to Celestine's private room. The three of them were talking about the people who would be attending the wedding, such as Celestine's former comrades and current friends. Zheng Tan wasn't interested in these people. What made Zheng Tan curious was the master that the three of them were talking about. Celestine said that his master was still healthy and had nothing to do recently. The old man said that he would come over when he had time to see the living environment of his three disciples. Zheng Tan felt that it was a pity that Celestine's master's cat, Dashan, wouldn't be coming. As for Air Mao and the other's master, what kind of person was he? Chapter 215. Wei Ling's wedding was set on the second day of the National Day holiday. Mama Jiao didn't plan to take the children on a long trip this year during the National Day holiday. There was too much traffic during the National Day holiday. If they went on a trip, she wouldn't be able to take care of 2 children and a restless cat. Celestine said that he wanted to send a car to pick her up, but Jiaoma refused. Celestine was the star of the show today, and he would be very busy in the morning. He still had to snatch the bride, so he would need a lot of people and cars. Besides, the Jiao family had cars, and Jiaoma knew where the wedding was going to be held. It was just Shaoguang Hotel, and she was familiar with it, so it wasn't worth the trouble. Air Mao ran away early in the morning after checking the cat food. It had to help Celestine today. It was very busy last night and came back very late. If it weren't for the cat at home, it would have slept outside. After going downstairs, Jiaoma stopped the car at the gate of the courtyard. Zheng Tan looked out and saw 2 people standing at the gate. Zheng Tan felt that they looked familiar. He looked down and saw the cage in the hands of the little girl, who was not much older than little Pomelo. It suddenly dawned on him that they were from this family. There was a guinea pig in the cage. Zheng Tan had seen it before. He remembered that Celestine called this guy Chestnut. 2 years ago, this little guy was almost eaten by the sheriff and Huang when it came out on its own. Zheng Tan also saw Celestine at that time. The mother and daughter were the wife and child of Celestine's comrade. Unfortunately, that comrade died in a mission. Celestine and other comrades in arms had been helping him. Celestine often came to visit the mother and daughter. This time, Celestine definitely had to attend Celestine's wedding. Jiaoma gestured for the 2 men to get into the car. She had already contacted them last night. Anyway, she would help Celestine bring the 2 men over. Since Jiao Pa was not around, the car could still fit 2 more people. Zheng Tan and little Pomelo were in the back seat. When the mother and daughter came in, they were a little surprised to see the cat. The little girl was more guarded. After all, many cats were not very friendly to guinea pigs. Seeing that Zheng Tan had been sitting quietly beside little Pomelo, the mother and daughter were relieved. "Don't worry, my black charcoal is very sensible. He won't bully other animals," Jiaoma said. "That's right. Black charcoal never bullies the weak, unless it's a bad rat that steals things." Jiao Yuan turned his head to look behind him, his eyes fixed on the fur ball in the cage. However, the mother smiled and didn't say anything. She didn't think so. Fortunately, her guinea pig was kept in a cage, and the cat couldn't get in. Little Pomelo and Jiao Yuan, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, were mainly looking at Chestnut. On the way to the hotel, Jiao Yuan was more talkative and took the initiative to ask about the guinea pig. "I should have left Chestnut at home, but the child didn't want to. He said that he wanted to take Chestnut out to play," the mother said. "That's right. My guinea pig is the same. I have to take it with me everywhere. But my guinea pig is very sensible. It doesn't run around." Jiaoma smiled. In front of outsiders, of course, they would pick the good things to say. Jiao Ma didn't expose Zheng Tan's secret. However, Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo felt a little guilty. They knew very well how black charcoal was like. As long as the weather was good, this guy would run around most of the time during the day. Zheng Tan didn't blush when he heard Jiao Ma's somewhat exaggerated praise. Even if he did, it wouldn't be obvious. He lay on little Pomelo's lap in a serious manner. However, the guinea pig in the seat next to them was restless. It even barked at Zheng Tan a few times. It wasn't sure if it recognized him. Zheng Tan glanced at it and ignored it. This guy was a little bigger than the first time he saw it. It looked about 20 centimeters long. Its appearance was indeed likable and harmless. It was no wonder that children liked it. Chestnut doesn't seem to be afraid of black charcoal, the girl holding the cage said. After all, she had raised Chestnut for so long. She could definitely get the general meaning from Chestnut's barks and some of its actions. It probably knows that this cat doesn't have any bad intentions. Animals have a very good sixth sense. The mother smiled. It took some time to get from Tsinghua University to the hotel. On the way, Yuan Zi called once. Jiao Ma couldn't drive, so Jiao Yuan picked him up. Yuan Zi said that he would leave later. He had originally planned to bring some people along if there were too many people in the Jiao family. Since it wasn't necessary, he wasn't in a hurry. Some of the people in the company who were close to Celestine, such as the few comrades that Celestine had introduced to him, ran out before dawn. Today, Celestine looked a lot more decent. During the wedding ceremony, everyone's attention was on the newlyweds. Zheng Tan squatted on the stool and couldn't see anything. He had his back against the wall, so he didn't have to worry about people behind him. Both sides were well covered by little Pomelo and Jiao Yuan. If he wanted to look out, Zheng Tan could only see half of his head peeking out from under the table. He had to cover his ears to prevent others from seeing him. Although the people at this table didn't care, there was no guarantee that the people at other tables wouldn't mind. He had to save some face for Celestine. As for Chestnut, it had been hidden in a special bag. It was even worse than Zheng Tan's. The table was filled with familiar faces. Yuan Zi took time out of her time to come over today. One reason was because of Wei Ling's wedding, and the other reason was to chat with the Jiao family. She also wanted to see the fortune cat. Usually, this big boss was very busy and didn't have much time. Now that she finally had some free time, she wanted to get some fortune chi. This was a live version of the live version, not the fortune cat ornament in his office. At this table, except for the Jiao family, Yuan Ziyi and the mother and daughter, the others were all Celestine's comrades. Some of them often helped the mother and daughter, so there was no awkward silence. He heard from Air Mao that they had hired someone to take a video. Zheng Tan could just watch the video. Anyway, he wasn't very curious about that. Although she couldn't see what was going on outside, Zheng Tan could hear Air Mao, Senior Walnut, and a few other people who she had never heard before cheering loudly when the wedding was going through certain procedures. Zheng Tan felt so hungry that he wanted to sleep. He had digested the food he had for breakfast, so he was hungry and bored. When the wedding banquet finally started, Zheng Tan just buried himself in the food. Anyway, there was no shortage of people who helped him to take food, especially Yuan Zi. He was so active in taking food that the others at the table were confused. When Celestine came over to propose a toast, he wanted to signal to Zheng Tan, but Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo blocked him so tightly that Celestine could only see black pointy ears. After the banquet, many people who were busy with work or had other things to do had to leave. Celestine also booked some rooms in the hotel. Those who had nothing else to do in the afternoon and wanted to play cards could go upstairs and rest. He also arranged dinner. After Yuan Zi left, Jiao Ma took the children and the mother and daughter upstairs to rest. The three children prepared to play cards while the two mothers talked. Zheng Tan wanted to sleep, but Chestnut, who was released from the cage, kept coming to Zheng Tan's side. Zheng Tan raised his foot to push it away, but in a few seconds, it came to him again. Annoyed by the disturbance, Zheng Tan jumped onto the back of the sofa and ignored Chestnut's calls. Before Zheng Tan could sleep for long, Air Mao came over. "Black charcoal, do you want to come over and play?" Air Mao looked at the black cat lying on the back of the sofa. He knew that whether he could take the cat away or not depended on the cat. If it agreed, the Jiao family would at most say a few words or say a few words. Basically, they would not object. Jing Tan thought for a while. Anyway, it was boring to stay here, so he followed Mao and went to see the legendary master. Mao was originally in the big suite with a few brothers who had not seen each other for a long time, but as they chatted, it became the master scolding his disciples one by one. Celestine was the star of the show today. He came to the room for a while, and when he saw that the situation was not right, he ran away with the excuse of accompanying the bride and entertaining the guests, leaving the other brothers there to be scolded. Especially those who had not been caught by the master for a long time, including Mao, they were the main targets of the scolding. Therefore, Mao thought of the black cat that was still in the hotel and planned to pull Jing Tan over to divert his attention. After all, the master was also a cat owner. Although the cat in the master's house was very special, if the cat came over, the master's attention should be diverted from them. Black charcoal, be careful later. Well, anyway, be careful and be smart. Mao could not help but say one more sentence before opening the door. Mao did not finish his sentence. Jing Tan did not know what Mao was trying to say. Was there any danger in there? Probably not. When Mao opened the door, Jing Tan followed behind him and went in. There was no smell of smoke inside. It was rare that a group of men did not smoke. Or was it because of the master that they did not smoke? However, there was no smell of smoke. There were other smells. Other than the smell of strangers, there was something else. Other than Mao and Senior Walnut, Jing Tan did not recognize any of the people sitting in the room. Mao was the youngest. In terms of age, other than the only old man, there were a few middle-aged men who looked about the same age as Senior Walnut. In the past, when he heard Celestine and the others talk about it, it seemed that there were older people counting up. It was just that they had important positions and were entangled with work. They were so free that they could not leave. The big red packet must have been in Celestine's hands. That bastard Celestine was probably counting the money now. Jing Tan had a very strange feeling from the moment he entered the room. It was as if someone was hiding in the dark and spying on him. With so many pairs of eyes staring at him, it would be nonsense to say that he did not feel pressured. However, Jing Tan felt that these people did not have any ill intentions, so he relaxed a little. They were mostly sizing him up, especially the old man who looked to be in good spirits. At first glance, this old man had a tough style. However, after a few more glances, he felt a lot more slippery. When he looked at Jing Tan, he was playing with the pai gao in his hands. He did not know if Mao's habit of playing cards had been learned from him. As the saying goes, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. The people in the room did not speak after Jing Tan followed Mao and the others. They played cards, drank tea, and picked their teeth. Everyone was busy with their own things. At the same time, they looked at Jing Tan as if they were expecting something. Jing Tan's feeling was even stronger. He always trusted his intuition. Since the enemy did not move, Jing Tan decided to make a move first. Jing Tan lifted his feet and walked from the door to the sofa. He kept his ears up and was alert to the movements around him. His eyes were focused on the few people sitting on the sofa. Unfortunately, he could not see much from these people's eyes. They were indeed Celestine and Mao's seniors and juniors. Each one was better at pretending than the other. As the feeling grew stronger and stronger, and at the same time, it sensed movement behind it. Jing Tan suddenly turned around and swung its claws out. It didn't even look at the attacker carefully. Its claws hooked onto the attacker's clothes, and with a turn of its body, it threw the attacker away. Chapter 216. Haha. The old man who was playing pai gao with an expressionless face threw it on the coffee table, slapping his leg and laughing heartily. The people sitting on the sofa also laughed out loud, with surprise and curiosity in their eyes. In contrast, Mao and Walnut's first reaction was not to laugh or be surprised, but to breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this cat has the ability, so it didn't lose out. Mao thought. Jing Tan didn't care about the people on the sofa, but stared at the attacker he had just thrown out. The one who had attacked Jing Tan wasn't a human, but a monkey wearing a small suit. It seemed to be the kind of macaque that was shown on TV. Macaques were widely distributed in the country and were considered a relatively common species of monkey. However, there were not many people who had the right to raise them. Other than the acrobatic troupes, zoos, and some tourist attractions, Xingtan had only seen one in real life. At this moment, the macaque had already gotten up and ran to a person's side, squeaking. Xingtan didn't know what it was saying, but from the way the monkey pointed at Xingtan and then at the small suit on its body, it was probably complaining. F***ck, you dared to complain when you took the initiative to attack. The atmosphere in the room began to liven up again. Some were talking about the trick Xingtan used to throw the monkey, some were making fun of the monkey, and most importantly, they had made a last-minute bet when Mao went to find Xingtan, betting on who would lose out. Strangely, except for the owner of the monkey and two other people, the others, including Walnut and the old man, all bet on Xingtan. Now these people were busy collecting money. What were they saying just now? Wu, song, hit, hu, ha. Walnut and the others who had won the bet shouted in unison. This group of people's personalities were really bad. Xingtan cursed in his heart. Mao also took some time to talk to Xingtan and told her about the monkey. The man who raised the monkey was also Celestine and Mao's senior. He was also He Tao's junior. His name was Pei Liang, and he used to be a soldier. After retiring from the army, he returned to his hometown and opened a shop. Pei Liang's family was located in a tourist area. It was close to a mountain. The shop he opened was a tourist business. His life was pretty good. However, one day when Pei Liang went to make a delivery, a little monkey suddenly ran over and jumped up from his trousers, hugging Pei Liang's arm and not letting go. Later, he found out that it was a tourist who met a little monkey without a mother while traveling. Out of curiosity, he wanted to bring it back to play. Who knew that the little monkey would find an opportunity to escape? For some reason, it grabbed Pei Liang's arm and refused to let go. After the tourist left, the little monkey was brought back to the mountains by the person in charge of that place. However, after a period of time, the little monkey somehow found Pei Liang's house and ran to his house every few days. The people living nearby would sometimes encounter monkeys, but after all, it was not often. Sometimes, in order to prevent the monkeys from going down the mountain to steal things, they would take some protective measures. There were not many incidents like Pei Liang's house that always had monkeys visiting. The monkey that Pei Liang encountered at his house was an exception. Gradually, it became familiar with Pei Liang's youngest son and did a lot of catching fish and birds. It helped pass the shovel to the children at home when they dug traps. It also followed the children at home when they went to join in the fun. However, it could not be like this all the time. Under his son's strong request, Pei Liang went to find someone to go through some procedures. After all, without the approval of the relevant forestry administrative department, the practice of privately raising nationally protected animals was illegal transportation and breeding. When he was naming it, Pei Liang wanted to just call it the Great Sage, Heaven's Equal. It sounded domineering, but Pei Liang's family was more particular and felt that the name could not be too high. Therefore, he removed Heaven and Sage and left Cheetah. However, Cheetah sounded a little like someone's boss. Pei Liang felt that it was too troublesome to think of a name, so he directly added the word "da" at the back. Therefore, Cheetah, the name that Xingtan felt was very awkward, hung on the macaque's head and would accompany it for the rest of its life. Cheetah's status in the family was not low. The children protected it, and the elders doted on it. Pei Liang's old mother even wore reading glasses and personally sewed a set of Great Sage, Heaven's Equal clothes. In Mao's words, it looked like it was singing an opera. The monkey's IQ was higher than some animals. After interacting with humans for a long time, it naturally learned some things. In the past 5 years, it became even more clever and strange. Therefore, Pei Liang did not dare to let it out at Celestine's wedding. Cheetah, this fellow, learned a lot of bad habits from the children at home. Celestine finally got married. If something happened, Celestine would definitely blame it on Pei Liang. Later on, there was a production team filming a movie at Pei Liang's place. Pei Liang's son brought Chi Dada over to watch the show and was fancied. After some discussion, they paid Pei Liang a sum of money to guide Chi Dada to make a cameo appearance. Originally, they prepared a trained monkey, but the monkey saw that it was not as intelligent as Chi Dada and changed it at the last minute. Reality proved that the effect was not bad. During that time, Cheetah got along very well with the film crew. It was always funny. After that, there were people who went there to film movies, TV series, scenes, documentaries, and promotional videos. It was unknown if the film crew had contacted each other, but they went to look for Cheetah. This monkey became very popular, and even Pei Liang's family business flourished for a long time. Now, many tourists went there for a vacation. When they heard Cheetah's name, they curiously went to take a look and even took photos. Cheetah, this monkey, loved to take photos. Who knew how many photos there were at home? When it looked at the camera, it naturally posed in a pretentious manner. Did you hear that? Whose pet can make more money than people? This is also supporting the family. Pei Liang sighed and showed off. He wanted to save some face for his monkey. Cheetah next to him also chirped a few times, as if it was responding. However, when they heard Pei Liang's words, pets make money to support the family, Mao and Walnut looked at Zheng Tan at the same time, but did not say much. A few people around them noticed Mao and Walnut's actions and asked a few questions. However, Mao did not elaborate. He only said that this black cat also made money to support the family, and it was a rich man. It turns out that this mongrel cat is more powerful than Cheetah. This is too low-key. We haven't seen any news about this cat, someone said. That's because its father doesn't allow it to be high-profile, Mao answered. That's right. The old master slammed the coffee table. Several people looked at the coffee table at the same time. After making sure that the coffee table was not broken, they continued to talk and laugh. They were all muttering in their hearts. When would the master change his bad habit of slamming the table? Fortunately, the old master knew not to destroy things in the hotel. The old man didn't feel that he had done anything inappropriate, so he continued, "This is to protect the cat." Nowadays, some people are blinded by greed and will do anything. Besides, animals don't enjoy some protection like people do, especially those that are not listed in the national protection level. They can only accept it if they suffer, so it's better to protect them. Pei Liang, you should learn from this. Yes, yes, yes. Pei Liang nodded. It's not because my home is in the mountains, unlike the big cities where there are many people. I'm not the only one raising monkeys there. Are other people's monkeys as popular as yours? The old master glared. Pei Liang withered. I will definitely pay attention. Cough. Speaking of which, this cat is really strong. Someone received Pei Liang's pleading look and changed the topic. Sure enough, once the topic changed to cats, the old master stopped talking about Pei Liang. What's so strange about that? Cats can't be judged by common sense. My cat has caught prey several times bigger than this one, the old man said in a matter-of-fact tone. The person who spoke just now curled his lips slightly and did not say anything. Anyway, the old master had his reasons and was not allowed to refute. As for the cat in the master's house, looking at the black cat not far away and thinking about the cat in the master's house, how could they be the same? Apart from the problem of strength, this cat's reaction was also very fast. When the black cat attacked, Chi Dada had just jumped out. Its reaction was really fast. One person said, Mao, did you leak the secret? Did you tell the cat that there was a monkey in the house? Another person asked. No, definitely not. I only told it to be more alert. Mao denied. The old master nodded. This cat was alert from the moment it entered the door. When its ears moved, I knew that the cat had noticed Chi Dada. It must have known that the monkey would attack from behind, so it was prepared. Zheng Tan. You flatter me. I really do not have the ability to find that stupid monkey. Also, from the perspective of human psychology, Zheng Tan did not want to be compared to other animals. It felt like he was bullying the weak. You guys. The old man raised his hand and pointed at Mao and the others one by one. You guys are not even as good as a cat. Mao and the other disciples all looked like they were choking at the same time, but no one refuted. Well, no matter what topic they were talking about, they had to be scolded. Jing Tan listened to this group of people chatting and noticed that the old man was either scolding them or praising his cat. Jing Tan, who had experienced it himself, knew that the words that came out of his cat's mouth were all kinds of good things, but when he actually saw the cat, he knew that it was all kinds of bad things. Chi Dada, who was hiding next to Pei Liang, had been thrown and now did not dare to go near Jing Tan. It probably saw that Jing Tan was not a soft persimmon, but a dangerous creature. It did not dare to go near him, but it kept provoking him. For example, it threw melon seeds and peanuts at Jing Tan. Jing Tan was angry. When he went near, the cat would hide next to Pei Liang and squeak. Later, Jing Tan was too lazy to care about it. He changed places and jumped onto the back of Walnut's sofa. The cat did not dare to throw things. If it accidentally threw things at Walnut's level, both the monkey and the people would be scolded. After eating in the afternoon, they went back home. Mao and the others went to the bridal room to make a scene. Jing Tan was not in the mood to follow them. He was a cat, so why should he join in? Originally, Jing Tan thought that after Celestine's wedding he would not see that monkey again. But a week later, Mao asked Jing Tan if he wanted to go out and play. It said that Chi Dada missed him. It turned out that Pei Liang had brought this cat to Chu Hua City this time. First, it was to attend Celestine's wedding. Second, it was to film a movie in a city near Chu Hua City. Chi Dada was going to make a cameo appearance. It was said that the pay was quite high. He went to film the day after the wedding and only came back yesterday. 2 weeks later, there was an animal show in Beijing. During this time, Pei Liang stayed at Walnut's house. Mao drove Jing Tan to Walnut's house. That monkey is probably holding a grudge. It's probably thinking about how to take revenge this time. Black Coal, you have to be more careful. Don't get beaten up. Beaten up? How was that possible? Just because of that monkey. After arriving at Walnut's house, just as he entered, Jing Tan heard a sound. Looking in the direction of the sound, Chi Dada was riding on a big dog. It looked at Jing Tan proudly and raised its chin. Chapter 217. Hey, Senior, why do you have a dog here? Mao stared at the dog. Seeing that the dog didn't show any hostility toward Jing Tan, he let out a sigh of relief. Jing Tan also saw that the dog in front of him was very vigilant at the beginning. After staring at him and Mao for a while, it became much more amiable and didn't seem to be aggressive. However, it still blocked Jing Tan and Mao at the door and didn't seem to want to leave. But the monkey on the big dog's back saw that the big dog didn't show any aggression for a long time and barked anxiously. It even pulled the collar on the dog's neck. Black Gold, come here. It's a guest. Walnut's voice came from the study. The big dog in front of Jing Tan and Mao immediately moved away and walked towards the study. This made Chi Dada even more anxious. It seemed to feel embarrassed and pulled the collar on the dog's neck a few more times to make the big dog turn around. Unfortunately, not only did it not make the big dog change direction, it was also thrown off the big dog's back. Rolling on the ground, Chi Dada got up and looked at Jing Tan. Seeing that Jing Tan's eyes weren't good, it quickly ran to the study to find a backer. It didn't want to be beaten again. When Jing Tan walked into the study, he saw that the big dog was lying next to Walnut, ignoring everyone else. Chi Dada jumped to Pei Liang, probably to complain. Another tattletale. Jing Tan felt disdain in his heart. This is a Kunming dog, right? It looks like it has served in the army. Mao's eyes lit up as it looked at Black Gold. Most men would prefer to have a dog. Just like when Jing Tan first met Walnut, Walnut had said, "I'd rather have a dog than a cat." Walnut was very proud when he heard Mao's words. Black Gold is a military dog that retired early due to injury. It belongs to a friend's company. Although a dog's status can't be compared to a person's, it's still a soldier, isn't it? People say that every carrot is a pit. It's also a weapon in the military. Even if you want it, you don't necessarily have it. I spent a lot of effort to get it here. After it came here, I still had to break it in. Fortunately, everything went smoothly. 2 days ago, he even helped me catch a drug dealer. This dog is really awesome. But I don't dare to take him to the police station. This kind of dog usually doesn't bite people casually. If it really bites, it's even more vicious than a wolf. You raised it without a word. That day at the hotel, when everyone was bragging about their pets, I didn't hear you say anything about dogs. But then again, don't you have police dogs? If you wanted to raise a dog, you wouldn't have waited until now. Mao asked. Isn't that right? Furthermore, after bringing it back, it took some time for it to get used to this place. If it was someone else with a strong temper, I wouldn't have been able to invite it back at all. He Jin might be able to help. He could help catch criminals when he was outside, guard against thieves when he was at home, and even help collect shoes when it rained. According to my friend, when he was in the company, black gold was often ordered by those people to steal other people's shoes so that he could make a fool of himself during an emergency assembly. Once, he even stole from his company commander. Lying on the ground, He Jin's ears twitched from time to time as he paid attention to his surroundings. Occasionally, he would hear a few familiar words and raise his head to look at Walnut. When Walnut talked about his friend and the company, He Jin whimpered from the ground. Walnut leaned over and patted He Jin's head. You miss them, right? Jing Tan suddenly felt that the atmosphere had become sad. Even Chi Dada didn't move. His eyes were wide open and he didn't know what he was thinking. Hey, Mao, let me show you some photos of Chi Dada from a while ago. Pei Liang spoke to break the sad atmosphere. Look, there's also a popular female celebrity. I also have her autograph. I can sell it for a lot of money. Zheng Tan was speechless. So he was trying to get her autograph so that he could sell it for money? These photos can be used to show off on shows and increase popularity. Pei Liang treasured these photos and specially bought a few albums to store them. When the time came, he would use them to show off. They're filming a period drama and they're wearing costumes. Senior Pei, aren't you afraid of being investigated for showing off their photos? Mao pointed at the photos in the album. It's okay. I've already asked for permission. They're happy to do it. This is also a kind of publicity that can increase their popularity. Obviously, this wasn't the first time Pei Liang had encountered this kind of situation. He was very familiar with it and had considered many aspects. While Mao was looking at the photos, Pei Liang took out his digital camera and said to Zheng Tan, Come, 3 friends. Let's take a photo to commemorate this. You can take a photo but don't let it leak out, Walnut said. I know what to do. Pei Liang waved his hand and motioned for Zheng Tan to go over. Hey Jin, Black Charcoal. They're both from the He family. It's fate. Who knows when these two will work together? After all, they both have experience in solving cases, Walnut said jokingly. To take a photo, Zheng Tan looked at Chi Dada who was flirting and then looked at He Jin who was obediently squatting there as if he was carrying out a mission. Zheng Tan thought for a while and jumped onto a small chair. If he was short, he had to stand taller. Otherwise, if Chi Dada and He Jin came over, Zheng Tan would look thin and small. Chi Dada didn't dare to stand close to Zheng Tan. He let He Jin stand in the middle while Zheng Tan and Chi Dada stood on both sides. Zheng Tan didn't care if he stood in the middle or on both sides. He just needed to take a photo. After returning home, Zheng Tan thought he wouldn't see that monkey again. However, a few days later, Pei Liang brought Chi Dada to visit him. Actually, Mao didn't allow them to enter the house. They had to come to the Jiao family. As soon as Chi Dada entered Mao's house, He Jin started to roar. Mao didn't care about anything else. His cat was more important. As for the monkey, it was better for him to stand outside the door. Mao cared about his cat, but Pei Liang cared about his monkey even more. After sitting at Mao's house for a while, Pei Liang discussed with Mao and asked Mao to bring them upstairs. After all, Jiao didn't know Pei Liang. It was Saturday. Little Pomelo and Jiao Yuan were both doing homework in their room. They didn't want to bother when they heard that there were guests. However, when they heard that there was a monkey, they immediately put down their pens and ran to the living room. Chi Dada was wearing a thin windbreaker today. It was wearing a hat just now. I didn't look carefully just now. I thought it was a kid. After hearing Mao's introduction, Jiao Ma welcomed Pei Liang and Chi Dada warmly. It's a pity that we don't have bananas at home. We don't have much food left either. Don't bother. Just give it a glass of water. Pei Liang quickly stopped Jiao Ma who was about to go out to buy food. Auntie Jiao still washed some fruits and brought them out. There were also some snacks. Pei Liang selectively let Chi Dada eat some. It was easy to get a stomachache if he ate anything. After all, this foodie was not human. When Chi Dada followed Jiao Yuan to play with toys in his room, there were only a few adults left in the living room. Today, Pei Liang came to visit. He wanted to see what kind of family raised Zheng Tan's special cat. Secondly, he wanted to take a picture of his 3 friends and talk about some things. Pei Liang took out a cigarette and was about to smoke. However, he remembered that there was only a woman and 2 children in the house. He put the cigarette down again. It's okay. Go ahead. No. If I take out the cigarette, Chi Dada will waste another one of my cigarettes. Oh, it even smokes. Jiao Ma was surprised. Yeah. Pei Liang began to complain. From smoking to drinking, now it even knew how to play cards. This guy even has its own wardrobe made by its family. There are also some souvenir clothes from the crew. Chi Dada is so arrogant. Even if its clothes are torn, we won't throw them away unless it dislikes them. It's been spoiled by its family. This triggered Mama Jiao's response. My family's too. It's been spoiled. Its temper is bigger than a human's. Zheng Tan, who was listening in the room, was speechless. Chi Dada got along well with the children. Maybe it was because it had more contact with children since it was young. It wasn't like other cats and dogs that ran away when they saw naughty children. Now, Chi Dada was bullying the 2 little Brazilian turtles in the tank. When the little turtles stuck their heads out, Chi Dada would poke them with its paws. When they stuck their heads out again, Chi Dada would poke them again. It looked like it was asking for trouble. Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo were laughing at the side. Participating in a show in Beijing? In the living room, Jiao Ma was surprised. Yes, the invitation was sent out 2 months ago. Because of this, my family has been preparing with it. My mother even bought good cloth and made a new Monkey King costume for it. It was sewn according to the appearance of Sun Wukong in the old version of Journey to the West on TV. She's waiting to shock everyone. I think your cat can participate too. Many of the animals participating in the show are very smart. Many of them have been on TV series, and movies before. They're half a star. I heard that your cat has also acted in commercials. It's definitely qualified. You can call and sign up. Did you sign up like this too? Jiao Ma asked. No. Pei Liang shook his head. Speaking of this matter, he began to show off again. Our family was invited by the production team personally. They didn't even need to check their qualifications because Chi Dada had already filmed many films and taken photos with many celebrities. As for the reason why we were invited to the show, a few months ago, there was a heated discussion about eating monkey brains. The show's crew suddenly saw Chi Dada in a TV series, so they came up with this idea to ask people to show mercy. My cat did the same thing, Jiao Ma said. We went to act in a public service advertisement because of the cat abuse incident. It could attract more public attention. Sigh, people nowadays. After a while, Zheng Tan heard Jiao Ma's exclamation and looked over. He saw Pei Liang showing off the photos of Chi Dada with the stars. Even little Pomelo and Jiao Yuan ran over to see. Before Pei Liang left, he left his phone number and the address of his restaurant. If the Jiao family wanted to travel there, they could inform them in advance. They would reserve a room for them, provide food and drinks, and even provide a tour guide. That was Chi Dada's territory. The show that Chi Dada participated in happened to be broadcast on a Saturday, usually around 8 o'clock in the evening. In the past, Jiao Ma would be watching a TV series at this time. However, today was an exception. The 3 Jiao family members and Zheng Tan were gathered in front of the TV. The show had been filmed a long time ago. Pei Liang had already brought Chi Dada home, but the first broadcast was that night. When Chi Dada went on stage, he was dressed in the Monkey King costume with 2 pheasant feathers on his head. It looked 70% to 80% similar to the costume of the Monkey King in Journey to the West. As soon as he went on stage, he danced with the golden cudgel and somersaulted. The audience applauded and cheered. After the performance, he bowed to show that he was not only talented but also polite. Zheng Tan couldn't help but sigh. Chi Dada had acted before. When he interacted with the host, he could always draw the audience's attention away from the pretty host and onto Chi Dada. As the host said, Chi Dada was a monkey spirit. There were other talent shows after that. Many pets had performed simple arithmetic before, but Pei Liang wasn't going to let Chi Dada perform that. Chi Dada can dance with a stick on stage and help with cooking at home. He's so versatile. However, I still have to ask, does Chi Dada have any other talents to show? The host asked Pei Liang, as if he didn't know anything. Pei Liang pretended to think for a while. Then let's have a poem with emotion. The audience at the scene and in front of the TV were curious. How could this monkey recite a poem with emotion? They didn't have to wait long before they finally found out. Chi Dada faced the audience. Behind him, the background screen showed goose, goose, goose curving its neck to the sky. White feathers floating on the green water, red palms plucking the clear waves. Pei Liang read it once. Chi Dada followed suit. G G G G G G G G G G G G G G G G G G G G G. In addition to this poem, Pei Liang read a few more lines, and Chi Dada followed suit. Although the audience couldn't understand, Chi Dada's punctuation, rhythm, and change of tone were all done very well, which made the audience laugh. Jiao Yuan looked at the TV, threw a piece of chocolate into his mouth, and said, "I think black charcoal can also go and meow a few poems. He'll definitely do better than Chi Dada." Little Pomelo nodded in agreement. Zheng Tan, "I won't go even if you beat me to death." After the show was funny, it began to stir up emotions. Pei Liang's acting skills were not to be trifled with. Although most of the narration was true, it still needed some embellishment to make people feel more deeply and understand the sense of responsibility. Many times, pets were treated like another child in the family. Perhaps many people could not understand, but those who had the same experience nodded their heads repeatedly. The host also contacted Pei Liang's home. Pei Liang's grandmother answered the phone. After the old lady received the call and heard the host's explanation, the first thing she said was, "Chi Dada, it's your grandmother." The host laughed and whispered, "Pei Liang is at the back." The audience was also laughing. Hearing the voice, Chi Dada looked around but didn't find anyone. Pei Liang handed the microphone to it. "Come, talk to your grandmother." Chi Dada grabbed the phone and chirped. No one could understand what it was saying, but it seemed that this monkey was very emotional and its eyes were wet. "Come back early after the show. Be careful on the road." Before the call ended, Pei Liang's mother said this to end the call. After the call, Chi Dada jumped into Pei Liang's arms. Pei Liang patted its back as if comforting a child. "You must be homesick. Let's go straight home after the show." After that, there wasn't much to talk about Pei Liang and Chi Dada. The show was coming to an end, and the theme had to be introduced. The background screen showed some pictures of monkeys in cages, and the uneasiness and fear in their eyes. This was the popular topic of eating monkey brains during that period of time. Chapter 218. Zheng Tan opened one of the compartments in the hidden drawer of the cat tree. This compartment was specially cleared by Zheng Tan to store business cards and other things. He had never thought about business cards before. After all, who would give a cat a business card? But now that he knew more people, there were bound to be some special people with different ideas. For example, on the day of Celestine's wedding, Zheng Tan had received a lot of business cards in the suite of Air Mao's brothers. At that time, Air Mao had helped to keep them, and later gave them to Zheng Tan when they returned to the villa complex. Those who had business cards gave business cards. Those who didn't have business cards cut a piece of paper about the size of a business card and wrote down some addresses. For example, Air Mao's master did the same. He asked Zheng Tan to visit him when he had time and get to know Dashin. He didn't know whether the paper was for Zheng Tan or for Zheng Tan's Jiao family. The latter was more likely. In these people's eyes, a cat could understand everything. It was already very capable to receive business cards. Pei Liang's business cards were quite professional. They were exquisitely made. Pei Liang often went out and interacted with many people, so he was more particular about business cards. Pei Liang also allowed Zheng Tan to travel there with the Jiao family when she had time. They could go sightseeing. Zheng Tan really wanted to travel, but he couldn't travel alone in his current cat form. The 3 Jiao family members couldn't leave either. Even if it was the holidays, Jiao Ma didn't dare to take the 2 children far. If they wanted to travel, they had to wait for the Jiaopa to come back. Jing Tan counted the days. It had only been half a year since the Jiaopa left. He had to wait. Celestine was now married and had a wife. Recently, he was busy making babies. He quit smoking and drinking and didn't go to the nightclub. He was very well behaved. Mao, on the other hand, often went out. He didn't know where to go with Qin Tao and the others. Thinking about it carefully, the only people who acted as Zheng Tan's transportation vehicle and drivers were these two. Now that the two of them were busy with their own things, it was impossible for Zheng Tan to go out and have fun. As for Fang Xiaokong, he was busy and had a big family business. Zheng Tan didn't count on him. After looking at the business card, Zheng Tan sighed. He locked the drawer again and hid the key. He stretched and decided to go out for a walk. Huang and the sheriff were staring at the sparrow under the trees in the courtyard. Depang was lying on the grass, basking in the sun, looking lazy. Zheng Tan walked out of the courtyard and decided to walk around the campus. There weren't many people at this time, and there weren't many cars coming and going. Zheng Tan casually walked on the main road. Suddenly, he heard a scolding behind him. He turned around and saw a modified three-wheeled bicycle. It was more like a heavy-duty bicycle used to pull goods. However, the back of the bicycle was smaller and didn't need to be stepped on. It could be used as an electric bicycle. There was also a basket in front of the bicycle. The person riding the bicycle was an old man. Behind the old man's bicycle was a border collie. It was the target of the old man's scolding. At the moment, it was running with the bicycle. Before it was scolded, it smelled something and ran into the grass. Looking at its size, this border collie should be underage, but it was full of energy. When the old man scolded it, it immediately rushed out of the grass and continued to run with the bicycle. The old man controlled the speed of the bicycle. It wasn't fast, but because the border collie was distracted, it fell a little far away. After the old man rode past Zheng Tan, the border collie ran past Zheng Tan like a gust of wind. Zheng Tan walked on the sidewalk. The old man rode his bicycle on the driveway. He didn't pay attention to Zheng Tan on the sidewalk. After the border collie ran past Zheng Tan, it suddenly stopped and looked at Zheng Tan. It wagged its tail and ran towards Zheng Tan. It seemed to be very curious about Zheng Tan's cat, but it didn't show any malice. If it were an ordinary cat, regardless of whether it had any malice, when it saw a big dog running towards it, its first reaction would be to run. If it didn't run, it would bow and growl. However, Zheng Tan didn't intend to pay attention to the dog. It would soon be called away by the old man anyway. Sure enough, before the border collie could get close to Zheng Tan, it was called away by the old man riding in front of him. It seemed to be quite obedient. If it were the Sahara, it would pretend not to hear you even if you called it a few times. It might even run away. After climbing up the hill, Zheng Tan saw the border collie jump onto the old man's bicycle and squat in the loading area. It put its chin on the edge and looked around curiously. Zheng Tan thought about it and was sure that he had never seen the dog before. Perhaps it was because he hadn't walked around campus for a few months. In June, in order to avoid people who knew him putting the title of mythical beast on his head, he rarely ran around campus. He went out for walks more often. Then he stayed outside during the summer vacation. In September, although he walked around, there were still many places he didn't go. Maybe there were new members, so it was normal that he hadn't seen it before. He shook his head and stopped thinking about what had just happened. Whether there were new members or not, it didn't have much to do with him. He then walked slowly along the main road. When he passed by the School of Physics building, Zheng Tan glanced over there and saw the three-wheeled electric car parked not far from the door. The border collie near the car was sniffing around on the grass. As for the old man, there were 3 people standing at the door of the building. One was the old man riding the bicycle, one he didn't know, and the third one Zheng Tan was familiar with. Speaking of which, he hadn't seen Lord Zeng for a while. Thinking about it, Lord Zeng was also a busy man. Lord Zeng was still the same as usual. There was always a sense of seriousness on his face, and he stood there with a strong aura. However, the other 2 people obviously had some status. Looking at the way they spoke, they were not so restrained and were very casual. It seemed that these 3 people were acquaintances. Zheng Tan was still some distance away from the gate of the School of Physics. Originally, he didn't intend to get close. He just passed by when he was taking a stroll. However, when Zheng Tan was about to leave, the border collie sniffing the wildflowers on the grass saw Zheng Tan. It immediately wagged its tail and ran towards Zheng Tan, looking very excited. Zheng Tan was speechless. F***ck, it's just a cat. Why is this dog so excited? Ignoring the overenergetic dog that was blindly jumping in front of him, Zheng Tan walked along the original route. The old man riding the bicycle was talking to two friends, but he was also paying attention to his dog. When he caught a glimpse of his dog rushing out, he looked over there. It seems to be the black cat I saw on the road, said the old man. The other two people also looked over there, especially Lord Zeng. Black charcoal? What? Yi, do you know that cat? Whose family is it? Asked the old man. Yi is Lord Zeng's real name. The students gave her such a name because Lord Zeng's name was similar to Yihenera's, and the aura of the official was enough, while the teachers all called her Dean Yi, Professor Yi, Teacher Yi, and those who were familiar with her status would call her Yi. Tan Fong, hurry up and call your dog over. Don't bite the cat, Lord Zeng said to the old man. It's okay. Cola won't really bite. It just wants to find a friend to play with. It just came here not long ago and didn't know many friends. It's so excited because it saw a new friend. There used to be a black cat in my son's house. It had no companion at home, so it pestered the cat to play. Unfortunately, the cat ran away as soon as it saw it. The more it ran, the faster it ran. It always scared the cat to hide on the high cabinet. Now Cola is here. It's lonely at home. It can be seen on the road just now. It's estimated that it feels like a cat that looks like an old friend and has a sense of intimacy. The old man told Tan Fong about what had happened on the road. Tan Fong's first impression of Zheng Tan was that the cat was either too stupid or too brave. Otherwise, how could it be so calm in the face of a dog that was many times bigger than it? Yi, do you think the cat has a problem with its IQ or something? Tan Fong asked Lord Zeng. Nonsense, the cat is smart and it's not afraid of dogs. Its family lives in the East Courtyard, a teacher's family in the Academy of Biological Sciences. The cat is very famous in the East Courtyard. Almost everyone there knows it. I only knew about it because of a student. Tan Fong, call your dog back. Lord Zeng was still worried that the dog would do harm to Zheng Tan. All right. The old man called the dog back, but he was thinking that he would take the dog for a walk after dinner today. Tan Fong moved to the West Courtyard this summer. He used to live outside. This year, because his granddaughter was admitted to Tsinghua University, he decided to move into the school and live with his granddaughter. He could take care of her at ordinary times. He really didn't know a lot about the school. When Zheng Tan continued to walk around the school, he didn't know that the old man on the electric bike was inquiring about him everywhere. Tan Fong was surprised when he inquired about it. Although he knew that these things were not comprehensive and there were exaggerations, he could see that the cat was smart enough, especially when it came to catching thieves. It was said that dogs were nosy. What about the cat catching thieves? He did all the work of the dog. As for how credible it is, it's just a rumor. It can't be completely believed, but it's not without reason. It's not easy for his dog to find a playmate in school. He's idle, so it's good to go and have a look. After dinner, Zheng Tan lay on the sofa and pulled his ears. He looked at the old man and the dog in the living room reluctantly. Next to the sofa, Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo were surrounding the border collie named Cola. Maybe it was because dogs were more likely to arouse children's enthusiasm, but Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo had a good attitude towards the border collie. Jiao Ma was chatting with the old man with the surname Tan with a warm smile. Tan Fong only said that he was a retired physics teacher, but Jiao Ma had good eyesight. When the old man in front of her said Lord Zeng's name casually, she knew that this person's identity was similar to Lord Zeng's. Jiao Ma was more or less nervous about a big name who was similar to Lord Zeng. Even if the person in front of her looked very easygoing, Jiao Ma didn't dare to be careless. It didn't matter if he was from Jiao Pa's school or not, it would be good for Jiao Pa when he came back. These old men were very capable. Therefore, Jiao Ma had been very polite. Most of the time, when people communicate with their pets, it's faster to get familiar with each other. The old man mainly talked about pets, But he also led Jiaoma to talk about her own cat. Unknowingly, the pressure in Jiaoma's heart lessened a lot. But soon, the smile on Jiaoma's face froze. I take Cola out for a walk every week. Since your cat is so sensible and often goes out, I'll take your cat out for a walk when I take Cola out, Tan Fong said as if he was doing her a favor. Chapter 219. Jiaoma regretted praising her cat too much. Now, she couldn't take back her words even if she wanted to. Deep down, she wanted to tell the man in front of her to give up on the idea. She knew very well that people like him were men of their words. If he said it today, he might just take her cat out tomorrow. Mr. Tan, my cat is actually a troublemaker. He has a bad temper and I can't control him. It's fine. Didn't you say it yourself? This isn't the first time I've taken him out to play. Besides, your cat is much stronger than Cola. I have to use a leash when I take him out. Otherwise, he might just jump off the leash if he sees any other cat or dog that catches his eye. But I don't have to use a leash on him at school. It's safer there, it's not as chaotic as outside. As soon as Tan Fong opened his mouth, he started rambling. Before Mama Jiao could reply, the old man looked at his watch and said, "It's getting late. I won't disturb you anymore. I'll go back first." Jiao Ma saw that Tan Fong was about to leave. She wanted to say something to stop the old man from taking her cat out, but before she could say anything, Tan Fong raised his hand and said, "You don't have to see me out. You're too kind, Ms. Gu." Jiao Ma, Tan Fong called Cola and hummed a little tune as he went downstairs. When he reached the third floor, he saw Old Man Lon, who had just come out to throw out the trash. The two men knew each other and chatted on their way downstairs. Jiao Ma, who had wanted to explain more, retracted her foot. She didn't know how to deal with these two old men. Jiao Ma turned around and closed the door behind her. She sat on the sofa and sighed. Then she looked at Zheng Tan and said, "Black charcoal, why do you always know people like this?" Zheng Tan tugged at his ears. He really couldn't answer this question. He didn't want to go out for a walk. He had already walked around the surrounding areas of Tsinghua University. If he went further, he wouldn't have gone there as often. Only the road to Jiao Yuan School was a little further away. The other directions were basically unfamiliar. Of course, if Jiao Ma insisted on not agreeing, he would ignore the old man. Jiao Ma stared at Zheng Tan for a while before letting out a long sigh. She got up and walked to the bedroom. She decided to send an email to her husband, who was far away in the ocean, to tell him about it and let him make a decision. It wasn't just because of what happened today. Her cat was always running outside. In the past, when she was brought out by Wei Ling and Air Mao, she wasn't very happy. Now that there was another person, if this continued, would her cat become more and more wild and eventually run away from home? Jiao Ma's colleagues in the office all said that cats didn't love home as much as dogs, so she couldn't help but worry. If Zheng Tan knew what Jiao Ma was thinking, he would think that her worries were unnecessary. He really didn't want to leave the Jiao family. Although the Jiao family wasn't a rich family, the place they lived in was small, and the family members had no power or influence. Zheng Tan felt safe here. That was enough. If something happened to the Jiao family and they needed money, Zheng Tan could learn from Qi Dada and go out to earn money. If Qi Dada could earn money to support his family, how could he be any worse than it? Jiao Pa didn't know how to reply to Jiao Ma. 2 days later, Jiao Ma said to Zheng Tan, "If you want to go out to play, then go. But be careful. Bring the cat tag with you. Be careful." Tan Fong was a man of his word. The day before he went out, he told Jiao Ma that he was leaving. The next day, he rode his electric 3-wheeled motorcycle to the eastern courtyard. Zheng Tan had been waiting in a tree in the courtyard. The border collie named Cola was sitting on the 3-wheeled motorcycle. It was probably excited to see the other 3 cats in the courtyard. It wanted to come down, but it was scolded by Tan Fong and stopped. It still had a leash around its neck, so it couldn't jump down even if it wanted to. Zheng Tan looked at the basket in front of the motorcycle. There were things in it, so he could only squeeze with the dog. He jumped down from the tree and onto the back of the 3-wheeled motorcycle. Although the space wasn't big, it was enough to accommodate a dog and a cat. The 2 bottles of wine didn't take up much space, so Zheng Tan didn't feel crowded. However, the border collie next to him kept swinging its tail. Zheng Tan was annoyed, so he kicked it, but he didn't use much strength. Woof! Cola barked after being kicked, but it wasn't really angry. Be quiet, Cola. You're riding a bike. Tan Fong didn't turn around and shouted. Cola looked at Jing Tan and moved to the side. However, its tail was still wagging happily. This guy seemed to be in a good mood and didn't care about Jing Tan. It kept looking at the people and things on the side of the road. Sometimes, it would even bark at someone's dog. Jing Tan didn't take the main road with a lot of traffic. After leaving the area around Tsinghua University, Jing Tan was unfamiliar with the surroundings. He didn't care about Cola's wagging tail. He carefully looked at the surrounding buildings and road signs. It wasn't easy to walk around, so he had to remember the way. After turning a corner, they entered a small street. There were more people buying sundries and snacks on both sides. There were also people riding three-wheeled scooters like Tan Fong. However, they were carrying two children, while Tan Fong was carrying a cat and a dog. The scooter was driving slightly faster. When it caught up from behind, that person even talked to Tan Fong. He often came here, so he was familiar with him and they could chat for a while. That person was carrying his twin granddaughters. The two children were dressed exactly the same and had the same little braids. From their reactions when they saw Jing Tan and Cola, it could be seen that although they looked the same, there were differences in their personalities. The two scooters were side by side for a few seconds. A cat and a dog on one side, and a pair of twins on the other, stared at each other. The child closer to the scooter had a more lively personality. She even wanted to reach out and pull Jing Tan's beard, but Jing Tan dodged her. However, Cola went up and licked the little girl's hand, causing the child to laugh so hard that her eyes disappeared. After all, the road wasn't wide, so it was impossible for the two scooters to stay side by side. Tan Fong slowed down, and the scooter ran in front and gradually went away. Tan Fong's destination was a normal university. This university wasn't bad, but it was slightly far from Tsinghua University. It would take too much time for Jing Tan to walk here by himself, so he had never been here before. Just now, he was wondering why there were so many small shops on the street. It turned out that they were near the university. Tan Fong went through the side door. The guard here was very familiar with Tan Fong and even took the initiative to greet Tan Fong. When the scooter stopped, Jing Tan looked around. It should be the staff dormitory area of this university. The building was older, but it was newer than the building in the east courtyard. On the second floor, an old man was standing on the balcony and watching. When he saw Tan Fong, he went downstairs with a chessboard and a bag in his hands. Wait, I'll bring these 2 bottles of wine up for you first. Tan Fong turned around and took the wine. Just leave it there first. No one will take it anyway, said the old man. Other polite words like, why are you bringing wine when you're here, were not said. Before Tan Fong went upstairs, the old man's wife came downstairs. She waved her hand and asked the two of them to go play chess. She could still carry these 2 bottles of wine. It wasn't troublesome. Oh, why is there a cat this time? The old man asked curiously. Then he immediately scolded, you brought the cat out of someone's house? You old man, why do you always do such unreliable things? How is it unreliable? This cat is smart. It was very well behaved along the way. It knows what's good for it, said Tan Fong. Aren't you afraid of losing it? No, I've asked around. This cat is always taken out by people. It's used to it. A few days ago, there was a cat that took the bus overseas, right? So don't underestimate the cat's IQ. Tan Fong's face was full of disdain. I'm not going to argue with you. Anyway, you won't listen to me. Anyway, keep an eye on it. Don't lose the cat. The old man looked at the black cat in the scooter and said, oh, I know. Tan Fong said as he urged him to hurry up and win 2 rounds. If you lose, give me the pot of orchid on your balcony. I met a friend a few days ago. I'll give it to him as a gift. Hey, I don't know who will lose more. The place where the 2 old men played chess was in the forest next to the staff dormitory area. There were stone benches and stone tables there. For the old men, sitting on the stone benches at this time of the year was a little cold. However, the 2 old men didn't like to play chess in the house. They said that it wasn't enjoyable there. For this reason, they had specially prepared a tool, a cushion. The bag that the old man was carrying earlier had a thick cushion in it. Jing Tan could tell that the old man's health wasn't as good as Tan Fong's. He could tell that there was something wrong with his legs when he walked too fast. Perhaps it was because of this that Tan Fong rode over himself instead of letting the old man go to Tsinghua University to play chess with Tan Fong. Cola barked twice. Tan Fong heard the barking and waved his hand. Okay, go play by yourself. Don't run too far. After getting permission, Cola immediately ran into the grass, sniffing around and peeing at the trees to mark them. Jing Tan was curious about this unfamiliar place. She planned to walk around, but soon, Cola caught up with her after the excitement had passed. Jing Tan listened to the conversation between the two old men and found out that Cola couldn't run too far in the past. There were very few dogs and cats around here. Cola would lie by Tan Fong's feet and yawn in boredom. Tan Fong's old man was so enthusiastic that he got himself fixed up so that he could play with his dog. Jing Tan wasn't in the mood to take care of Tan Fong's dog. Seeing that Cola was next to him, Jing Tan tried to lift a branch by his feet. Cola immediately picked it up. Jing Tan lifted it again, and Cola picked it up again. It seemed to be having a lot of fun. Jing Tan used all his strength to lift the branch away. He saw Cola chasing after the branch and was about to take the opportunity to run away. Suddenly, he heard a wolf howl not far away. "Ooh, a woo." She turned off the night light and covered her shoulders. Intertwined with sparks and settling, this phone's ringtone was really unique. Jing Tan pulled his ear. Just as she thought of this, Jing Tan heard a familiar voice. She walked towards the voice. Jing Tan was on higher ground. When he looked down, he saw two people squatting down. They were Er Mao, who had been missing recently, and Qin Tao, who was nicknamed Beast. Er Mao sensed something and looked up. When he saw a familiar cat head, the corner of his eyes started twitching. Qin Tao didn't notice Er Mao's actions. He was busy answering a phone call. "I'm at Beijing Normal University. I'm interested in a girl from Beijing Normal University. She's the prettiest girl in Beijing Normal University. Birthday party? Whose birthday? I don't know. Or, it's been almost a month. Who still remembers what she looks like? I'm not going. I'm not in a good mood recently. I'm not going to work. You don't have to go to the company to find me. You don't have to go to the apartment either. That's all." After hanging up, Qin Tao started to complain to Er Mao again. When he saw Er Mao's actions, he also looked up. "It's that cat. That look as if it was looking at an idiot. It must be that cat." Qin Tao didn't need to look at the cat tag. He was quite sure just by looking at the cat's eyes. When Jing Tan saw these two people, his thoughts were, why are these two idiots here?